Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. My name is Jeff Sharon. Joining me, the student of the game, Kyle Nash. Eric Lopez is off this week. So, and also Stat Boy Drew, the Leroy Jenkins of UCF Twitter Mafia, is here. And then he's also, what's your new nickname this week now? The
I don't know. It's whatever your
non-sequitur?
flavor is.
Master of the
You're the one who makes them all up.
College football hipster, by the way.
Yes, college football hipster, the master of the non sequitur, Andrew Glukov, is here.
The uniform snob himself.
We are eyeball deep in football now. We have one game under our belt. We'll talk about that. UCF getting a victory over South Carolina State in a fashion that I think everyone was hoping to see. We will also preview the Louisville game coming up for Friday night. UCF's first big challenge of the season. We'll also talk about soccer and volleyball later on with Bryson Turner and some transfer portal news as well. But let's, gentlemen, let's go ahead and start with the task at hand and preview this Louisville game. UCF is a 5.5-point favorite. 81% of the money is on the Knights. Kickoff scheduled for 7:30 p.m. on Friday night against the 0-1 Louisville Cardinals, who got thrashed by my Syracuse Orange last week, which I'm very happy about. Over under 61.5, and the over is getting 91% of the action, according to OddsShark. So here's the story. UCF last week took care of South Carolina State 56-10. We saw John Rice Plumlee about as good a debut as you could possibly ask for. UCF had 600 yards of total offense. Now we're going by these stats, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that, so there were some issues with these stats throughout the game due to some technical problems, which I'm sure they'll have sorted out by the time that we get to work on Friday. But UCF, scored 21 points in the first quarter. They're up 28-3 at the half. There were, and you guys talked about, Drew, obviously some of the issues that reared their head during that game. I think the O-line had, I think their debut on the season was as expected, which is to say, not spectacular. John Rice Plumlee did have that fumble on that sack, and what I thought was the play of the game was he and Ryan O'Keefe chasing down Jablonski Green inside the 5, and then UCF forced them into a field goal after that. That for me was the play of the game. And then the special teams issues, obviously Daniel Obarski missed one long field goal. It was past 40 yards. But I think the real issue was the penalties in the return game. That was the big one. But I'm going to flip the script on your head here, Drew, and ask you to talk about the things that you were happy about for once. Thoughts on, what you were encouraged by from last Thursday that you look forward to seeing more of on Friday?
Well, let's start with the offense. One of the things I really like seeing, and this is always a big risk with mobile quarterbacks, is going through progressions. And John Rice Plumlee did an excellent. You can watch him on plays where you can see his head move. He's making reads, and he's making reads in his progressions, and he's not just tucking the ball and running, which is very common for a run-first quarterback. He's doing what a true dual threat should be doing, which is on a pass play, look for the pass. If it's not there, then you tuck it and run. Remember, his first play was a check down his first throw was a check down to Isaiah Bowser. He looked, it wasn't there. He checked down and got some good yardage out of it. There were times where if he looked a little harder, he may have found an open, check down guy instead of tucking and running. But you have to understand the heat of the moment. You have to look over offensive line who are taller than you. It's easy for players to kind of get missed, especially. And there was one play in particular where Bowser is by himself, no one within 10, 15 yards of him on the left side, but the play moved to the right. And it's understandable to not see him at that point. So I can't really blame Plumlee for tucking and running at that point, because that's where everything's going. And
I thought that there were a couple of, and forgive me for interrupting, but I don't know if we were talking about the same play, but maybe we are, maybe we aren't. But I think that there was the play that I thought of, but there was one play where he had Isaiah wide open on a check.
That's the one I was talking about.
On the left, but then he threw it to a deeper receiver on the left, and the play got broken up. And I was thinking, oh, he got greedy.
Well, you don't want to make a cross-body throw in that situation either, Jeff.
Right.
I mean, that's a tough look.
But that's why I was thinking it may have been a different play, because I was thinking there was something happened to the left. He threw it to a deeper receiver on the left who was covered, thought he could fit it in, but he was thinking, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take a shot because I can throw this guy open downfield, and he missed him.
Since you're specifically telling me to be on the positive, I'm not gonna hit on the downfield throw because there's a lot of negatives on his downfield throws.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna stay on the positive aspect.
There aren't too many negatives. I just think I think he needs to work on touch, is what I'm saying.
He needs to work on not throwing into double coverage
on
deep passes. He did it multiple times. Don't do that.
On that, Drew. If it's a situation where Ryan O'Keefe is ahead of two defenders behind him, you let that loose. There's too many people concerned about how many defenders are in on a play. The target was there. He had them beat. He made the damn play. Now, there's a few he did throw incorrectly into double coverage, increasing the level of difficulty. But if you got a group of guys that's this fast and two people are behind him, i.e. Ryan O'Keefe's catch, that's not a bad choice. We need to stop being focused necessarily on the number of defenders in the window.
I do want to point out one thing as we nitpick John Rice Plumlee into the ground, that he finished 20 of 31 for 308 yards and 4 touchdown passes. And then he also ran for 100 yards on 16 carries and scored 1 touchdown. And if I am not mistaken, he is the first UCF quarterback in history to throw for 300 and run for 100 in the same game.
They revised that down because of the stupid sack yardage against the rushing game that college had. So he actually got revised down to 86 yards on the day.
Okay, now here's my question on that, because I saw the same thing that you saw, and
they updated that to make those the official stats. Like Yahoo updated based on that because they had a higher number originally.
Because the 100 is still up on UCF's site, but I'm looking at ESPN. They say 15 carries, 86 yards,
which is what Yahoo has as well. Live Stats, I believe, updated to that because, and you agree with me on this. It's stupid. The pros have negative rushing yards or negative sack yards against their passing number. College has it against the rushing number.
Drives me crazy.
So in reality, he did have over 100 yards rushing as far as pure running. But because of the sacks, it goes against it.
I'm going with him actually having 100 yards rushing.
Well,
he's responsible.
No one else will.
He's responsible for 5 touchdowns, though.
Correct. You know, if we're going to talk about the positives with him throwing, we would be remiss, gentlemen, if we didn't speak to his ability to throw while taking hits as well. There were a number of times he found Kamori Gamble while taking the hit. Listen, say what you want about his downfield throws. I personally think the best throw of the night, waiting that last minute, taking that hit. Gamble gets an extra number of yards by the way that the ball was placed for him to take it down the field a bit further. That's the kind of stuff you want to see from a quarterback whose job is to overcompensate. I shouldn't say overcompensate, but to compensate for a lack of protection. Yeah.
Are you referring to the crossbody one? Are you referring to the one where he kind of, he's running to the right and he's kind of about to take it, and he throws it across because
Not
my
the
favorite
one-
pass was the one to Gamble that he threw across. The spiral was perfect.
Yeah.
It was right in his gut. I mean, it was a beautiful pass. It was my favorite pass of the day.
No,
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, that's not the one I meant, but an excellent point that you're building on with me here, Drew, is that throw under duress. Listen, you want to hit Jalen Robinson down the field wide open in the spring game. That's adorable. And as much Jeff wanted to sell me that product, I wasn't buying then. Stuff that we're talking about, Drew, these two passes should have a much higher price tag on that than that flare we saw in the spring game. Because A, it counts, and B, it was under duress. That's the testing we needed to see here.
Yeah.
Well, and you're talking practice versus game time. Those guys on game time, they want to hit you, and they're going to hit you. So you know the hit's coming. There's that anticipation that gets in your head. In the spring game, they're not going to touch. They're not going to knock you over. They're going to touch you, whatever. They're going to pull up.
Right. One thing I did like from John Rice is the fact that when he did miss guys, he overthrew them.
Right.
Well, and that's
which is what you want to do, especially if you have the kind of speed that UCF has on the roster. It's like, I'm going to challenge my receivers to go get this and challenge them toward the open end of the field.
It's funny. He actually did a better job making the harder throws, and he missed some of the easier ones. Which
the Zach Marshwojan one, man, I tell you, I'm like. First of all, I don't know how Zach got that wide open. You want to talk about a blown coverage? I mean, there was nobody within 30 yards of him, and
that being his
he almost threw it out the back of the end zone. I'm like, dude,
I remember that play. I remember that play.
For that, Zach got some beers for that.
There was a stutter by Ryan O'Keefe that pulled in that other coverage, and Zach just ran right by him because he wasn't even looking at that point. He got sucked in by O'Keefe because we all know that wide receiver screen is a common play that UCF runs. And because it's gotten in their head, it's the same thing as, run to set up the pass. You run. Then when you do the pass, you can go over the top and they're not ready for it. Same idea. They're so used to that quick flare, that bubble screen, that it's going to bring those other DBs up a little bit. And you send one guy over the top. And in that case, he never saw it coming. The key is bring the ball down. What I was getting at.
Also, when you got a guy wide open, just lay it up to him. I mean, there was nobody there.
You can float it. There's no one in the zip code, so I mean, you can float it.
I wonder if it was one of those things where he, in the moment when he decided to throw, he saw Zach that wide open. He's like, "Oh my God!" Your eyes get really big, and then the adrenaline hits, and you don't intend to put that much on it, but it's like, all right, I'm going to throw it, and you're like, oh my God, he's so wide open. This is going to be great.
Yes.
I know
that moment. And then,
oh my God.
Well, I can see how that can get in your head a little bit because look at the throw the deep throw he made to Ryan O'Keefe that O'Keefe caught between the two defenders.
I still don't know how he caught that, by the way.
Against a better defense, that's a pass deflect, that's a batted away ball or an interception.
They weren't. No. They're not.
The truth was that throw should never have been thrown. The problem was it was actually a little underthrow. If it was over,
he did underthrow that a little bit.
Okay, if it was over the top, there's no chance. It's what I did like, and we saw this on a number of the incompletions. Is not so much the ones that he airmailed, which he had a couple on the sideline. He just airmailed them. No, but I'm talking about like the Gamble one that was dropped near the end zone and stuff like that. Yeah. He put it in a place where it was either the receiver or nobody.
Right.
And you put the onus on the receiver, it touches your hands, make that catch.
You did have, I think, how many really drops did you guys count?
I think I counted like
I remember three.
I got four. I got Gamble with a couple. Kobe Hudson had a bad drop. There weren't too many.
I feel like he hit those, like you were saying, Drew, he hit those guys right in the hands. I thought that maybe the reason why was because he put a little too much gas on it.
I'm just possible, but I don't buy that. This
fair.
Now the South Carolina State guy had no touch on his throws, none whatsoever. I mean, everything was 100% on the throw. And
against that defense,
and that actually led to that interception was the fact he put so much mustard on it the guy had no chance. He barely got fingertips on it. It was a tip throw.
Yeah.
But I like the touch. I think because Gamble had a bad drop and then made up for it with that really good catch.
diving catch. That was great.
So, I mean, it made up for I just think part of it's part of the progression of going to that first game jitters. You have a lot of new faces on this team. And I think it worked out well. I mean, Javon Baker was just absolutely a man on fire. And I think it's only going to get better because he's the number 2 wideout. Ryan O'Keefe's the number 1. So Ryan O'Keefe's always going to get the number 1 guy. The moment they switch, now Ryan O'Keefe has the number 2 guy, and he's going to feast. So you're establishing with a 2-headed monster like that. And we haven't even touched the ability that Kobe Hudson also has as the 3rd guy. We haven't even touched that because he had an almost non-existent day. But if you notice the distribution of the ball really wasn't needed. John Rice Plumlee got the ball out to what was it? 7 different receivers. So
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
He had himself a day, but he didn't. No one caught the ball more than 5 times. Baker had 5, and then no one over 3. So he was moving the ball. That's part of the progressions, not settling on one guy. And other than a few passes, I would say you love to take those back. You really should. You don't have to throw those deep ones if they're not there. If they're not there, don't force it. But he was willing to compromise. And then when things broke down, he would tuck it and run. And you automatically have 2 running backs in the backfield because he is a running back with an arm.
Yeah. No, I thought that he played really good. Considering, let's also remember this is the first game he's played at quarterback since 2019. So, we can afford to give him a first game he started, rather, I should say. So we can give him a little bit of grace on that. And those are things that he's got to work on. I also wanted to talk about, while we had the chance, I'm looking at the total numbers. Running game was on point. Isaiah Bowser did Isaiah Bowser things, 22 carries, 74 yards.
He should never have carried the ball that much in this game. It wasn't necessary. They should have pulled him out and let Johnny Richardson and then one of the 2 other guys, Mark Anthony Richards or RJ Harvey, be the other guy in the rotation. I understand wanting to keep the starters in, but when you got a guy who is injury prone and you look at his history, Northwestern and at UCF, there is a history of injuries.
Yeah.
Don't run the guy more than you really need to. And you didn't. My magic number was 15 carries. He had 13 at the end of the first half. Okay, you keep him a little bit in the second half. Pull him out. There at that point, there's nothing really to gain.
Don't they? Well, let me ask you a question. Don't the players have some, in this case, wouldn't a player like Isaiah, who's a 5th-year senior, have enough input where, the coaches are going to go to him and be like, hey, you good? And he's like, nah, give me a few more.
Well, based on last year too, Jeff, with the whole injury situation, they already have that. I would expect that they already have that relationship established. We heard Coach Malzahn talk about that throughout the year last year, about when he was nicked up and when they were trying to work him back in, they would ask him, how he feels and if he could go and all that sort of stuff. That line,
I think Isaiah has that. I'm not saying I know. It would seem to me like, based on what we saw last year and what you're talking about, Kyle, that he does have that sort of.
I wanted to see RJ Harvey come in there. He had, he missed last year because of injury. This would have been the perfect time for some game time. And I think some of those guys, I don't want to say got cheated out, because Coach Malzahn explained why he did it, because he didn't feel they were in game shape. They needed to play longer and kind of prove it to him. But I think we missed out on an opportunity to see, especially him, who needs that game rep. He's so raw as a running back, but as we know, he's a wrecking ball on the field. I think we would have. I think we as fans, as well as the team, would have benefited from him more so than Bowser getting more carries. You know what he's going to do. You know what he can do, and he's proven himself. And he never slowed down. And that's what you expect out of him.
That being said, something that's not on the stats, though, Drew, is this way now. Louisville is not able to scout him.
Right. That's the other thing. And I wanted to segue on that because, again, based on last week's stats, UCF with 600 total yards of offense. They held South Carolina State to 91 total yards. And despite only, and even in that case, only got 1 turnover off of South Carolina State, which shows you that the defense was really on point. But as we spin it forward to Louisville, I think everyone was surprised by that loss to Syracuse. Obviously, this is a revenge game for UCF at home. The advanced stats say that this game is going to be closer than maybe some people think, based on what Louisville's result was earlier. Malik Cunningham is somebody that we're going to have to deal with. Kyle, I want to start with you. What's your outlook on this one? I feel like, Louisville was interesting. I think they averaged 6.8 yards per play against Syracuse, and yet managed to score only 7 points.
Well, right, but I mean, listen, there's a lot of firearm discharge to the metatarsals, which is to say they shot themselves in the foot, Jeff. 3 turnovers in that game. Listen, Malik Cunningham had a fantastic completion percentage, and when you add the 2 interceptions, it's even higher, right? They had a fumble lost as well. So I think there's definitely a lot of element of first week jitters there, a lot of stuff going on where, again, if you give the ball to the other team that much, it's Christmas in September, okay? So I think that there's a lot of what's going on there, and, credit to your Orange for getting those points off of turnovers. Yes, that's really weird to say on this show. It's one thing when we're talking Browns with Drew, but I digress. All these colors, what is this, kindergarten? Anyways, no, but at the end of the day, I think, and this is kind of the message portrayed by not just Coach Malzahn, but Anthony Montalvo and Ryan O'Keefe, who were both at the Monday presser, that, listen, it's really easy to overlook a team when you see that happen. And to O'Keefe's credit, not only was it just as, revenge, like this being week 2, there's so much writing on this game. Malik Cunningham being a test, not just for the linebackers, but if you believe Coach Malzahn, the entire defense needs to watch out for this cat. Malzahn had recruited him back in his Auburn days.
Yeah.
In Malzahn's belief, this is still one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I don't think he's wrong. In a world where dual threat is the way of life, Malik Cunningham is the kind of prospect you're looking for. Does he need some polish compared to last year based on what I saw? Sure. But maybe he's got it. Maybe that first week, those first week jitters coming out, the kind of things that make you miss simple inside blocks, if you ask Brian Kelly and LSU. But the line is, I like the attitude, and hey, listen, winning this game isn't just a lift for the team. Losing this game is problematic for trying to make that last punch while you're still in the American, right? To Ryan O'Keefe's point, this game could define their season.
Yeah, and one quick tip on Cunningham last week against Syracuse: 16 to 22, 152 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
That's over
ran
70%.
for 34 yards.
That's
right.
over 70% completions.
Right.
When he threw it, he made plays. That comes down to the offensive line. They were crashing on him because he 13 carries, 34 yards. Of course, you take the sacks into consideration, and part of that, and he was, he did have to deal with some of that.
He was sacked 3 times.
Yeah. For 13 yards of loss. So there's that. The other part that's inexplicable. I Syracuse absolutely just blasts them on the scoreboard. But if you look at the penalties, Syracuse had 18 penalties. Imagine if they didn't.
Well, now it's interesting about that. 18 penalties for 107 yards, which seems like a really low number of penalties.
A lot of false starts, I'm guessing.
False starts, offsides, things like that. Yeah, a lot of 5-yarders mixed in there.
Yeah, and
if you're running and gashing against a team, Jeff, which I feel like is probably what Coach Malzahn's going to do, right? If you're running and gashing a team to keep Malik Cunningham off the field, hey, listen, your Orange did it exactly the way it should be done, right? You created turnovers, you established not only a running game where you had more carries, but significantly more yards. You had 5 minutes more time of possession, and the only reason why it was only 5 minutes is because you were scoring on short fields off of turnovers.
Yeah.
If you want to win this game against Malik Cunningham by keeping him off the field, that's how it's done.
Yeah. Now, Sean Tucker, who's a preseason All-American, 21 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown. And then Garrett Schrader, Syracuse's quarterback, who threw for 236 and 2 touchdowns, also ran for 94 and a touchdown. So if I'm John Rice Plumlee, I'm looking at that stat line and I'm starting to lick my chops. And if I'm Gus, I'm looking at that stat line saying, well, I got more guys than just Sean Tucker.
Well, not only that, because Schrader, much like we're probably going to see out of Plumlee, Schrader can tuck and run. 16 for 95.
Schrader can run.
Score.
He's got wheels.
Let's jump to the defensive side.
Yeah.
And so you have Tyler Hudson, who's their best receiver. You got 2 strong corners. I expect Devontae Brown to be the guy to lock him down, and then the talent drops off a lot. So they're going to dare Cunningham to throw the ball. They're going to force him to throw the ball. And I've said it before, and I said it during night shift, and I wouldn't be surprised if they use Justin Hodges as a potential spy, because he's got the speed to keep up with Cunningham, and he's got the tackling ability as well. They didn't have that really in place at this point last year. They were still kind of putting things together. The defense really wasn't fully together.
And Tremont Morris-Brash, I think, would have been that, but he didn't get much action until late in the game.
Well,
made a big play late in the game.
None of the ends have the speed for that. The ends don't have the speed for that. The problem was
Tremont does.
Bryson Armstrong.
Was
the flex
really
guy, and they actually moved him to full-time linebacker later in the year, and it actually worked out better. He wasn't really meant to be the flex guy, but he was at the time, and it actually came back to haunt them because he just didn't have that raw speed that you need that you would get more from a defense back. So I think Hodges is in a really good spot here. He's got the mind for it, he's got the legs for it, and he's got the arms for it. So I think if they spy him like that, force him to have to throw the ball, win in the air, I think it's going to really help shut down Louisville's offensive momentum.
Yeah, I mean, and it was Cunningham with his legs that hurt us last year in that game. Go ahead.
Imagine if Hodges actually started in that game instead of not coming in until the Navy game. That might have been something that prevented some of the injuries, because you got guys who aren't as fast trying to chase a dude that fast. When you're tired, you're more prone to get hurt. And, granted, Hodges wouldn't have had the knowledge of the position that he does now, clearly. But athletically speaking, it would have been interesting to see. Now granted, at the time, I think Hodges might have been banged up. That might have been why he wasn't in the position. But, listen, if you believe anything from defensive coordinator Travis Williams, a.k.a. T-Will, he has done nothing but sing praises of how Hodges has evolved since last year, just on the strength of learning. But Drew, quickly to your point, you mentioned that they're going to dare Malik Cunningham to throw. That might be the strategy, but with a linebacking core this young, gap integrity is going to be the most important thing to execute that plan. And young guys licking chops for a game of this magnitude, that will be a challenge.
Speaking of linebacking, Walter Yates, the third transfer from, I think it was Eastern Illinois, had an absolutely awesome game last week against South Carolina State. They're going to be relying on him quite a bit and I think he's kind of solidified himself early on as that number 2 linebacker behind Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste. So with Hodges kind of going as that tweener to make it a 4-3 or nickel, you could basically change a defense without substitution, so you never know what they're going to throw. It really makes it hard to plan against when it's done right, and you have a guy now who's doing it right, as opposed to this point last year when it wasn't really rostered right. Now you've got a lot more talent. And the thing is, people were really afraid when Tatum Bethune transferred, and there was a lot of attrition. I'd say in the linebacking core, Gus Malzahn did a very good job hitting the portal and bringing in guys. I think it's been a much better fit early on compared to the offensive line, which also had to be patched up. And you've got a combination of youth as well as experience. Kadre Mosier is still there, and he's got a lot of talent. Brandon Jennings is on the 2 DPs of one of the transfers they brought in, Jason Johnson, who's the third guy at this point behind Yates and whatnot. So that position, I think, is really important against mobile quarterback.
Yeah. Well, UCF did lose a linebacker this week, reportedly, with Terrence Lewis announcing on social media that he is entering into the transfer portal. A guy who didn't crack the 2 deep, and obviously, came in as highly touted transfer from Maryland. I think it just didn't work out. Drew and Kyle, were you able to learn anything about what happened there?
Nothing in as far as details at this point.
Yeah, we just found out last night as of when this is being recorded, so I haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah, he posted that he was looking. My guess was, you didn't crack the 2 deep. I think he was looking to get on the field a little bit quicker. To each their own. And everyone's looking for something.
It's a bummer, and wish some luck, going forward, because sometimes the portal's like free agency, man. Some signings work and sometimes some signings don't.
Well, with the new rules that are going to be coming in place, things are going to change as far as the availability of when you can, go into the portal and whatnot. I think the timing's not very good.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to play this year. You're going to sit out no matter where you go.
It could be an off the field thing too. Let's not rule that out.
He did have
we don't know.
Issues.
We just don't know.
Transfer. Yeah, it was a rough transfer. He had some legal issues that later got dropped. So I mean, it was not a clean. Let's come to UCF. He's from the Miami area. Maybe he ends up at an FIU overall, and they can use a guy that they can insert much more quickly. He's back home. I mean, I think that may be a good fit. But it didn't work out here. The fact he didn't crack the 2 deep, maybe that was part of the problem. Could have been how he practiced, how his attitude was. Sure, we don't know. All we know is the end result of negative.
I wasn't even thinking of anything negative when I said that, Drew. It could have been something with his family too.
It could be anything. All we know is what's written in front of us, which was he wasn't in the 2 deep, and now he's looking to go somewhere else. Right. That's all we can accept as fact at this point.
Correct.
Well, I mean, I hope wherever he ends up, I hope it works out for him because all these guys deserve to get a chance to play and a chance to show off the best of what they can be. So if it can't be here at UCF, I hope it's somewhere else for Terrence. So last little bit before we go, guys. Predicted score via OddsShark 33-30 UCF. My -5, or excuse me, it's a 5.5 point spread right now, like we mentioned earlier. Both teams have split the prior 2 meetings, including last year. And then, of course, in 2013, that legendary game up in Louisville. This is the first time that they're meeting here in Orlando. Seems to be a little bit of discussion around the fan base as to how this is going to look. Drew, I want to start with you. How you thinking this one's going to play out real quick? Because I know you got to go.
I don't think it's going to be as big of a blowout as some people think. I think it's going to be something more like 28-17. I don't think it's going to be a last-second game. I think Gus Malzahn and Travis Williams are going to game plan against Cunningham rather well. They've seen him. They know the talent that they have, and they've had the coaching already in place as opposed to last year when things were fresh. UCF's offense did not play against a team with a FBS level defense. So I take how they did with a bit of a grain of salt. There's a reason why they didn't move up in the polls.
That said, they did what they were supposed to do.
You did what you were supposed to do, and actually there were areas that they struggled with against a bad team. So I don't think it's going to be quite the runaway, but I think UCF will win, and I think they will cover.
Kyle?
Listening to Anthony Montalvo Monday, I heard 2 things I don't want to hear as a UCF fan. I heard that offensive line is something that not only they have a lot of returners, but they have NFL caliber talent at certain spots on it. And as well as that, the amount of polish, or I should say lack thereof, that the team felt like they had in week 1 is something that they got a week to cure. That being said, according to Coach Gus Malzahn, good teams improve the most from 0 to 1 and 1 to 2, right? So there's still that chance for that jump and that adjustment to be made. For my money, I think Drew's spot on that it's going to be close. I know in the preseason, I actually marked UCF losing this game, but regardless of the victor, I do see both teams scoring 30 or more points. Like a 37-30 is kind of where my mind is at with that. Simply for both teams adjusting to what they have in front of them on the other side, because as much as Coach Gus has alluded to the fact these teams have played each other, UCF is so very different basically all over the field. To assume a known quantity there, incredibly difficult. But I mean, if I'm going to keep integrity, I got Louisville winning this game, but if I am wrong, feel free to let me know.
I would have given you. I freak out about these kinds of games. I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to come down to maybe the last possession. But we have a ace in the hole in our back pocket for this one, boys. You know what it is?
It's me.
Well, no, not even close.
They have never lost a game I covered in person.
Fair. All right. We'll go with that one. But actually, I was thinking more our boy Roy Philpott, who's going to be covering the game calling the game on ESPN2, along with Andre Ware and Paul.
And UCF never loses when he calls it.
Roy Philpott's our good luck charm. Roy, if you're listening, we're always happy to have you at FBC Mortgage Stadium for a UCF game. We always appreciate you. And Roy, you got to bring us a good one here because, UCF needs this one on a Friday night. National television, 7:30 kick, ESPN2, UCF against Louisville. We will have full coverage for you from this game. Guys, that watch along that Drew, you and Eric did pretty well.
So I've been told. No one actually told me anything, but
they all told your wife because she was the celebrity.
Oh my God, she took over, and she didn't even know it. I had the slider closed, the door closed. It didn't matter. You heard her through when there was a touchdown. You heard her when something went wrong. You heard her.
Fantastic. You guys gonna
She's
do it
the
again?
real MVP.
Oh no,
That's
you're
not
gonna
me.
be here. You're gonna be here. So.
Yep. I will be upstairs at FBC Mortgage Stadium
Right.
along with Kyle.
And yours truly.
And you don't count.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess
you
not.
don't count.
I'm busy.
You're busy. But there should be night shift afterwards. I expect Bryson and Eric to do their thing.
Doing that. Yep.
After
Noah
the game.
and Derek will be on the field shooting photos too. So, or actually, I think just Derek.
But we're loaded. We're everywhere.
And hey, listen,
We are Legion.
I'll be joining in the night shift after the post-game press conference there too, as we did last week. That went pretty well. Always a good time when you can get the vid bomb from Brandon Hellwig. And a good time all the way around. And Jeff, I will make sure he doesn't talk about food this time.
Okay. And make sure
Please.
that no one goes on the field.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to have some breakup.
Hey, Bryson, listen, Bryson had ambition. He was going for the gold. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but hey, that's life and live broadcasting. There it is.
When we return, we are joined by the guy who will be on the mic with Andre Ware and Paul Carcaterra on Friday night for UCF and Louisville. Roy Philpott, our good luck charm, joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast when we return. We're back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon with you, along with Eric Lopez, who's dropped in. And our guest this week, breaking down UCF and Louisville on Friday, is, we call him UCF's good luck charm, because every time that he comes in to do a game for UCF, we somehow managed to find out, UCF somehow manages to pull it out. We're going to discuss that with him. But you've known him from calling college football, multiple sports on ESPN since 2013. It was originally from a place actually not too far from where I worked when I started my TV career. Joining us from his home in South Carolina, in Greenville, right, Roy?
Yeah,
Roy
Philpott.
Right. Roy Philpott joining us from ESPN from Greenville, from beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. How are you, Roy?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Jeff, Eric, it's good to be with you guys, and looking forward to the Bounce House Friday night once again. Should be a lot of fun.
All right, so back to what I was hinting at before. Do you know UCF's record in games that you call?
Well, I saw that you guys had posted something about this on Twitter a while back.
We haven't gone back in the archives yet, and I regret the fact that we haven't. But I know that UCF has a winning record with you on the mic.
A high percentage in a minimum. Yeah.
So I started calling football games for ESPN really in 2015. And I want to say the first time I came down there, had you guys on the road, was probably 2017. And I'm not sure if there's ever been a game I've called where UCF has lost, truthfully, because we were kind of there in the pinnacle of the Scott Frost era. Right. I remember we called a game in Cincinnati. And this was a while back. We had a game in Cincinnati where UCF did not punt a single time, and they called the game in the fourth quarter because
of the weather.
Bad weather. Yeah. So from that point moving forward, especially down there, UCF hasn't lost hardly a game since 2017. I think it's like 31-2. So I'm pretty sure, every game I've called, even when UCF's been on the road, like last year, maybe at USF or maybe 2 years ago, USF. UCF has won.
That was a win.
You've called the last 3 Warren I-4s between UCF and USF with Kelly Stauffer and Laura Sizzler at the time. The big story this year is you got a new crew with you, with Andre Ware and Paul Carcaterra. Talk about that kind of a new lineup, the big Friday night games you'll be getting mostly, and with a new crew.
Yeah, we're all Friday nights, Eric, and it's a highly coveted package. I mean, to make no mistake about it, because all eyes are on you for the most part. People that are in college football are either in their hotel rooms or traveling to their hotel rooms that Friday night. That includes teams, coaches, media members, broadcasters. So I mean, what have I done the last 5 or 6 years? Every Friday I get to my hotel room and I flip on Friday night and we watch it, and the ratings are typically pretty good. The matchups can be hit or miss, but even sometimes if you have a matchup where maybe it's 2 teams around 500, maybe the teams aren't that great, it still for whatever reason produces pretty good television and pretty competitive games. And so I mean, this is something that when they asked me if I would do it back in the summer, the answer was hell yes. I mean, because it's usually pretty good football. It's a great crew. I've known Andre and Clark for the last couple of years in our production crew, and it was just a real nice surprise to get that call and to be a part of this on Friday nights.
Speaking as somebody who's been around the world of college football and is familiar with UCF from your work doing our games on the road and at home, what is, at least right now, as UCF begins to transition into the Big 12 starting in 2023, what is the public and the national perception of UCF right now?
I still feel like there was enough brand building in the undefeated season, and I think it really helps how last year ended in the first season under Gus Malzahn, to where there's still, from my perspective, it feels like there's a lot of positive momentum that's still in place, regardless of some people may have viewed that the program has taken a half step back from 2017 or whatever year you want to produce. I still think the brand is very, very strong. And I think part of that is, again, the end of last season, the move to the Big 12, where, it just a lot of things have lined up, even if you aren't running the table right now. Look, you may this year, for all we know. Who knows? I mean, I think the schedule is more than manageable based off what I've seen so far. And you got plenty of athletes once again, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But the brand, I think, has remained intact. And I can't emphasize that word enough. Brand. Perception is reality. And whether we like it or not in collegiate athletics and in college sports and college football, how you're perceived and kind of the brand awareness that you've created over X number of years matters almost as much as anything. And that's one of the reasons this program got the invitation of the Big 12. You take a step up into Power 5 football next year, even though for the most part it feels like a Power 5 team. So I think nationally the brand is in a really, really good spot. And I think this year's critical too, right? Because if you take that next step, year 2 under Gus Malzahn, everybody's like, okay, this thing's right back where it was when it was at the pinnacle of the group of 5, and now it's taking that next step into the Power 5. This month, next month, as we get into November and how this thing unfolds this year, I think is critical. But I still think the brand is very, very strong.
You mentioned, obviously, you think your first game was 2017 Cincinnati. That was Scott Frost year. And then after that was Josh Heupel. Now we've got Gus. Just describe it. You've had a unique perspective when you've covered UCF from these different coaches. What's it been like dealing with them as you prepare for a broadcast, and obviously, especially currently now with Gus?
Yeah, I remember that game in Cincinnati that we called at Scott Frost, and I went to our producer that week and I said, hey, I want to do an on-the-field interview with Scott, like when they come out for warm-ups that we can play either right off the top of the show or during the game. And so Scott was good with it. Everybody at UCF was good with it. And so we go down on the field there at Nippert, and we do the interview, and I'm pretending we're coming back from break, and maybe like 15 seconds in, I trip up over a word. And I'm like, oh, we got to redo it. He just kind of looks at me. He goes, really? He goes, that's what you tripped up on? And, he was just busting my chops, which that's how you know if Coach Frost liked you. And so we had a good laugh about that. But, that's the kind of guy he is. And, he expects big things even out of the broadcasters that are interviewing him. And so you go from him to Coach Heupel, who, everything, you just think about what he brought to the table. And the offense was so quick. And our interviews with him, our meetings with him were always very matter of fact. And he was willing to peel the curtain back a little bit, which we always appreciated. And talking about his quarterbacks and some difficult situations that occurred, obviously with injuries and those sorts of things. But Josh was fantastic. And you know what? He's doing a great job at Tennessee right now. And then now with the Gus Bus, last year had you guys against Memphis, and then also the World I-4 against South Florida. And he's great. He's great. I just want to see and hear about, which Waffle House he's going to after you guys win a game, and how he's going to get his hash browns. Is it covered and smothered? Is it chunked? Is it diced? All those kinds of things. And look, man, this is a big deal for him to kind of get his career back to where it was, when he was helping lead Auburn to a national championship as an assistant, and then to really unparalleled heights as well as a head coach. And, with him and Christy, his wife, it just seems to be a fun story, a good story, and it seems to be a really good fit to have him with his program right now.
Let's talk about Friday night. Louisville coming to town. These two got a history, not just last year and the way that game ended, which was one of the most catastrophic endings in school history if you're UCF. Payback in some way for what 2013 was when UCF came back and beat Teddy Bridgewater, Charlie Strong in Louisville, when what was supposed to be their sort of coronation, if you will, in their last year in the American, what was the Big East. So this is sort of a rubber match here. First time these two match up in Orlando. Of course, Malik Cunningham is back. UCF suffered a lot of injuries in that game. It wasn't just Dylan Gabriel at the end. Isaiah Bowser suffered a knee injury. Several other guys missed various amounts of time. What are the big storylines that you're following that we'll see on Friday night between these two squads?
Well, Louisville, first off, for them, it was an unusual game they played at Syracuse on Saturday. Number one, Louisville played late Saturday night. UCF obviously played last Thursday. So
I was going to say that's one way of saying it.
Right. That is one way of saying it. I think that their staff and certainly their fans were surprised at how that game unfolded. You go back and watch it, and it just felt like that, Syracuse was able to run with Garrett Schrader, their dual threat quarterback, which I think bodes well, obviously, for John Rice Plumlee coming up Friday night. But they played keep away. Louisville only ran 24 plays, I think, in that first half. And then Malik Cunningham gets on the field, and I think he started to press. So those two interceptions that he threw, one in the end zone, you could feel that. And so it was a perfect storm of sorts, I think, that lined up against Louisville in that game. And my expectation would be what Gus said, this week, that UCF is probably going to get Louisville's best shot as a result of the disappointment of that season opener. Now, they're better than that. Now, who's also to suggest that Syracuse may be vastly improved with their new offense under Coach Anai and what they're trying to do. He came over from Virginia, and he's got some weapons to work with Sean Tucker. So file that one away. But I expect you to get a much more focused, a more physical Louisville team. And so from that side of the equation, I think you're going to get their best effort. And let's see what Malik Cunningham can do on the road. And with what they were able to do last year with Marshawn Ford at tight end and some other weapons, I'm curious. And certainly Louisville's capable of winning a game like this. However, again, UCF plays Thursday night. Plumlee comes in, and it was just seamless. Now, it's weird because I remember talking to Gus last year, and I think this was I was doing a Sirius XM show for the AAC Media Days. I remember bringing Gus on the radio, and I said, man, I'm interested how Dylan Gabriel and what he's done and his skill set fits in with your offense. And, he said all the right things. You can try to mesh and do all these different things. It was good when he was healthy, obviously, but John Rice Plumlee is more the Gus Malzahn quarterback. I'm not saying he's better than Dylan because Dylan can spin it. I think he's going to put up huge numbers in Oklahoma. But the dual threat quarterback, you go back and watch Nick Marshall at Auburn, Cam Newton at Auburn. John Rice Plumlee is right there kind of in that mold. And so to me, it's a better fit. And so, all right, what does it look like after he sets all these career highs against SC State? Now in game 2, where you expect more improvement, but against better competition. I'm just like, I'm foaming at the mouth to see, okay, is this like the Gus Malzahn offense that we saw at the end of last year and Ernest time at Auburn with this kind of quarterback? And then, Ryan O'Keefe returns and Johnny Richardson is back, and Bowser, you mentioned, who transferred in from Northwestern 17 years ago. I love all of these weapons. So, I mean, my expectation is that, UCF is going to be able to score some points, move the ball, and do what you would expect. The question is, can Louisville match that with Cunningham and some new wide receivers that have transferred in? And I think therein kind of lies the juicy part of the game. But, I mean, my big thing on the UCF side is John Rice Plumlee. I had his baseball games at Ole Miss. I remember him playing out there at right field, Swayze Field. And, I mean, the dude's an athlete, and he's well put together. So, I mean, it's a guy that could really, he could start to emerge in a multitude of ways, if things break correctly here. And, especially in a primetime game like this where a lot of people in the nation are going to be watching.
No doubt. Jeff was putting some pressure, too. You notice you brought up the other two games, classic Friday night games. You guys got to try to match that. I'm curious if you've dealt with Travis Williams, obviously the defensive coordinator at UCF. What do you see on their defensive side of the ball? As you know, last year it was kind of a transition period, but they really played well, especially in the second half of the year, and carried the team. There's high expectations for their defense this year in year 2 under T-Will.
Yeah, and Travis is a good coach. Our conversations with him last year were fantastic. Of course, he's the budding musician and rapper and did all those things at Auburn, which is awesome when Gus was there. But I'm looking at my depth chart right here, and it feels like I'm looking at what I was looking at last year, plus a couple of P5 transfers. I mean, Tremont Morris-Brash returns, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, and these names that I remember very well. And now, Devon Wilson comes in from Georgia. I had him at Georgia couple of years ago, and that's before he was in the Big Ten, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. So, or maybe that was at Northwestern High School, but at Georgia, he was a player. So, 4-2-5 scheme, I like it. They dominated SC State, as you would expect. So that's a step in the right direction. We haven't talked to the UCF coaches just yet, but my expectation is that they're more than equipped to be able to deal with Louisville and the rest of the schedule. But just with Travis Williams, I think he's got his brand. I think he knows what he wants to do. I think he's high energy. He's a great recruiter. There's a lot there to like, but there's some familiar faces. And I think in a game like this, that makes a difference. And it makes a difference too, where you guys talked about, last year, devastating loss up there at Cardinal Stadium on the pick six, almost a walk-off pick six. Dylan gets injured, all the other freak injuries. And you heard that in Gus's voice this week. Like, that was one thing that kind of, I don't want to say it surprised me or that I've forgotten about it, but I guess I kind of had. And I was like, well, that's kind of another little checkbox there that if you're a UCF fan, you don't mind hearing. So that probably also plays a role in all of this as well.
Yeah, there's some guys I know who are chomping at the bit to get back after the way that game ended. Let me ask you about it and zoom out a little bit. Again, with UCF moving to the Big 12, I wanted to ask you about, from your perspective as a broadcaster, somebody who's in the business, because we hear the media news all the time and the television contracts and all that news. And I'm sure you follow that, pretty tightly as well. So how tightly do you follow realignment, media contracts, and when you have conversations with some of your friends and colleagues in the business, what are some of the things that you're talking about? Because, I think a lot of these things have to do with inventory that networks like yours and CBS and NBC and some of the other ones have, want to fill, and they have goals for revenue and advertising and all that. And I'm sure you talk to a lot of the business folks about that. From your perspective as someone in the business, what are the things that you pay attention to when discussing the nexus of realignment and these TV deals that are coming through?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I pay attention to all of it, and especially because the bulk of those rumors and the movement has come during the off season, especially like right before football season starts, where everything just seems to be ramping up. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, SC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, the movement of the Big 12 last year, all that happened. It felt like just in a storm of events about a month before or 2 months before the start of the college football season. And I mean, I find it captivating. I also do a ton of stuff on SiriusXM, on their ESPNU channel 84, some of their conference channels as well, including the Big 12. Hosted Big 12 this morning just 2 weeks ago. And I mean, so I'm in it. I'm involved in it. I'm immersed in it. I want to know more about it. I follow the rumors. You see that the Big Ten is aligning itself with Fox with that huge $1.1 billion contract. And there's a ripple effect that goes across, everybody that's in our business, because you think about it. Last Friday night, I was at Michigan State. I'm probably not going to be at Michigan State calling a football game, anytime in the near future. And certainly not throughout the rest of this decade. And so you just think about that and you kind of look around and soak it in a little bit more maybe than you normally would. So, on the ground, you kind of think of it from that perspective. And then long term, you think, okay, well, what's going to happen in the Midwest with the Big 12, in the Pac-12, and where are those rights going to go, and how could that impact, what I'm doing coming up? And then you look at it from a bigger picture, Jeff, as, what's good for collegiate sports. And, I think most people around the country would say a 2-power conference model probably isn't in the best interest of college athletics in its totality, because you're going to leave too many quality programs out. And ultimately, I don't believe that's how this thing is going to shake out. Nobody's told me that. That's just my opinion. I think we're going to end up with at least 3 power conferences and probably more, closer to 4 by the time all the dust settles, just because there's so many teams out there that I think that I know deserve a seat at the table, that are capable of making a run, winning a national championship. Talking about college football here, they get hot at the end of the season and their fan bases are rabid enough and support, those programs enough to warrant that consideration. So, I think about all aspects of it. I won't tell you that I'm staying up and not sleeping at night, worried about it, because I do think, that things are going to be okay. They just may look and feel a little different, as kind of everything happens with all of these leagues. But, my educated guess is we're not going to end up with a power 2. It's going to be more than that, because, we got about 70 teams, in my opinion, that have a fighting chance to be in this thing and should be in this thing and have enough support to be in this thing.
It'll have a big impact on football, have been big impact on other sports like basketball, which you've called as well. You've called many UCF basketball games, both on the men and the women's side, with Brooke Weisbrod and others there. Some big wins there, too, up in Tampa in the women's side, and some wins on the men's side. Like I said, you're a good luck charm here. You're always welcome here. But I'm curious, your thoughts because you've covered Johnny Dawkins, and obviously women's basketball, they have a new head coach now in Cynthia Messer after Abe leaving for Georgia. But they're going to the Big 12, which is arguably the toughest conference in the sport in basketball. That's a huge impact. How do you think UCF will fare from what you've seen in covering UCF from a basketball standpoint?
Well, I think the whole transition to the Big 12 requires right out of the gate just more. And when I say more, it's more revenue, it's more fundraising, it's more facilities, and it's this whole just kind of movement to get everything where it needs to be down there. To be able to compete in the Big 12. Now, in basketball, it is an entirely different beast than what we're talking about in football, because as you indicated, Baylor just won a national championship, Kansas won a national championship, and from top to bottom over the course of the last 3 years, yes, the Big 12 has been the absolute best. So you like the fact you have Coach Dawkins. I think there's some familiarity there that helps. But, you have to ramp up. You have to ramp up recruiting and everything involved with facilities. And look, the times I've been down there, to call hoops or football, the facilities are right on track. And look, you're talking about one of the first indoor facilities out there. So you kind of know and understand already. But if you visit, some of the big time power brokers in collegiate sports, there's going to be some work to be done there. And from what I've gathered, the UCF administration has been on the ball there. The naming rights to the stadium come to mind, and some of the other fundraising efforts. That stuff is the backbone for what needs to happen to make the transition to the Big 12. And I was pleased to read this week, just, a lot of that stuff as the wheels have been in motion from your AD on down to make sure that they're checking all those boxes as they go through. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to find yourself at the bottom of the new Big 12. Even with the departure of Texas and Oklahoma, Cincinnati, BYU coming in, Houston, and plus with what you already have, teams that are used to the Power 5 model and everything that represents and brings to the table. It's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. So, that adjustment, I think, is real. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be filled with adversity. I don't believe that. but it's going to be interesting to see just how smooth it can be. And I will say, I think some of the fundraising efforts and the dollars coming in, the additional revenue streams that are happening right now as they go down this kind of 3-track course, I think it's a good start. And I think that's what you need to kind of make this transition next summer.
Couple last things before we let you go. We can't let you go by asking, you've called games in the bounce house. What's it like when that stadium's rocking like it's going to be Friday night? Jeff, who does PA, will be yelling, and they're going to get him bouncing. What's it like being in that press box? And do you tell some of your crew, do you give them a heads up since you've been there often, like, hey, be on the lookout, this is going to get a little bouncy here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just pound for pound, it's one of the better environments in college football. There's no doubt about that. A lot of the crew down there knows that and is aware of that, because you'll have some local guys that come in and some guys within the Sunshine State borders. But no, I mean, we look forward to it. The War on I-4 that I've done the last couple of years, Memphis game last year stands out, where, just when things start rolling, it's as good an atmosphere as you're going to get. Now, my expectation is we're going to be close to a sellout Friday night. Louisville's in town, the revenge factor, Power Five's in town, all those things, plus the season opening win 10 days ago, right? I mean, people should be hungry to see this team again. And so I'm expecting it to be loud. And look, my favorite thing, and I'll tell our crew this week in our production call Friday morning, we want it to be loud so I can shut up, so we can lay out. and so that those sounds come into the living rooms of the 1 point however many million people are watching, around the country. And that's great television. That's some of the best stuff we can do. It's not me calling a touchdown. It's, not us breaking down a play and explaining why this guard should have pulled and why they ran this twist or this stunt. It's a big play, and just the sound of the crowd and the vibe inside the bounce house takes over. And we've done games where you can feel that, you can hear that, and it all kind of comes at you all at once. That's great TV. So, yeah, I mean, we expect that. And I think, year 2 under Gus Malzahn, what's his team, won 7 of 8 going back to last year. He's never lost a home game as a UCF head coach. So, and again, with Louisville coming to town with what happened last year up there in the Derby City, I think it's going to be pretty rowdy. I would be disappointed if it wasn't.
Well, we're going to do our best for you.
It's
here,
going to be
Roy.
exciting. Yeah, get them rowdy there. But we just want to say, like I said, we're big fans of yours. Like I said, Jeff and I have talked about you and Kelly Stauffer, because Jeff was a big Kelly Stauffer fan going back to when he was playing.
I got a couple Kelly's rookie cards still buried in my box over there.
What are those?
Andre too, by the way.
What was Kelly's rookie card? 1964? What year was that? I don't know. 91, I think is what it was. 91, somewhere around there. All right, I'm gonna let him know. I think it was more like the late 1960s, but we'll go.
He wasn't wearing a single bar face mask or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And Andre Ware was what 91 with the Lions, I think, somewhere around that.
89, I think, was his first year. But yeah,
okay,
right around that 89, 90, 91, right around there when he came out of Houston, he went to Detroit. So
good.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you.
Heisman Trophy winner.
And a Heisman Trophy winner, yeah. And we're looking forward to seeing you and Andre and Paul Carcaterra on Friday night, 7:30 kickoff on ESPN 2. And you can follow Roy at Roy Philpott. That's PHILEOTT.
2 T's on the end. And give me the updated weather forecast for Friday, because it started to improve when I checked later today. A little rain's okay. Just keep the storms away. What do we know about the weather down there? What's it doing?
All right. Well, this is where we check in with Black and Gold Banneret's unofficial meteorologist, Eric Burris, who's a UCF graduate and works at West Channel 2, the NBC affiliate in town. Eric, did you see what he had for his forecast?
The problem is, Roy, it's Florida.
Iffy.
Yeah, it's Florida. It could rain at any moment. Hopefully, for your sake, you don't run into the issue of last year with the Boise State game where
the problem isn't the rain. The problem is the lightning.
Yes.
And we lucked out last Thursday where we had a storm blow through, but it was an hour and a half before the game, and the lightning got out of the 8-mile radius before
that's the key.
Well before kickoff. And so we were able to get the warm-ups in and get the game started. But yeah, it's going to be going to be a little iffy. But Eric Burris, WESH is the guy that you want to follow for the late. He's the best.
We're expecting. What a plug.
Yeah, look, we're all in this. We're all in this together. Like, okay, now Roy, I worked in Toccoa, Georgia for 2 years. Back when there was a CBS affiliate in there. So, and I know you did Clemson baseball. You're a Clemson graduate, and a couple of other sports at Clemson. We had to have crossed paths at some point around 2006, 7, 8. Is that right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, we probably did, because I was working as a writer and then in radio, as you indicated. At that time, I was probably doing mostly pregame stuff. And just starting at a TV in around 2009, I broadcast some high school football for a local ABC affiliate. That was kind of my break, so to speak.
Yeah, that was the station up in Nashville, right?
Yeah, it was out of Asheville, WLOS.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so we probably did. But that seems like a long time ago, which just means, Jeff, we're getting old. That's what that feels like.
It's not a long time ago, and yet it is a long time ago at the same time. But
try telling that to somebody that's not that long ago, to somebody that was born in 99 or 2000 or 2001, like the people that are now 21 now, and they're going to laugh at you and they're going to laugh at me. They're going to call us very old.
We got some young people on our Black and Gold Banneret staff who are like, Dante Culpepper, that was before I was born. And I just want to throw myself out the window. I can't even anymore. Roy Philpott joining us here from ESPN. You can hear him with Andre Ware and Paul Calcaterra on ESPN2, 7:30 kick, UCF against Louisville. Roy, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you in the press box on Friday night. Safe travels getting down here, all right?
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was awesome. Thanks to Roy Philpott. Again, Roy Philpott on Twitter, Philpott on Twitter.
We confirmed it. I think we confirmed it with his game being the first UCF football game being Cincinnati. I think the track record's been very good.
I want to double check, because due diligence, but we'll figure this out.
A high winning percentage.
It is a very high win percentage.
And he's great. Right. He's a great guy. Great crew.
So we got him and Andre and Paul Calcaterra joining us on Friday. So that should be a lot of fun. And the implications for this game are going to be pretty big as well. Speaking of implications, gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about some of the news that broke down earlier this week. Andrew Glukov joins us in the house as well to talk about this. It's the news on the college football playoff expansion. We thought it was dead in the water for a little while after the board of directors, that's the athletic directors, kind of, hemmed and hawed at each other for a little bit and then decided to table it. Well, then the board of managers got together. That's the presidents. And they have come out and said, enough is enough. We're going to do this and we're going to work it out.
Yeah, we want that money. Cha-ching. Can we get more money sounds?
Well, like we said, Eric, and you poo-pooed this, too much money on the table for them to just pass up.
They are a bunch of prostitutes. So that's
sorry. Hey, well, look, call them names all you want, but
no, that's fine. But here's the thing: let's not complain anymore when players ask for money. Let's not do that anymore.
Well, let's lay that aside.
Okay.
All right, and talk about this. The expansion is like they want 12. The CFP Ross Dellinger was the first to report this. 6 conference champions ranked highest by the selection committee, plus the 6 highest ranked teams not included among the 6 highest conference champions. Rankings will continue to be done by a selection committee. 4 highest ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4 and each receive a first round bye. Other 8 will play in the first round with the higher seeds hosting either on campus or at other sites designated by the higher seeded institution. There's a couple of other details going on through, but they've actually gone ahead and said, you know what, this is what's happening. And at least by Drew, I think I saw at least by 2026, but they're trying to swing this so that they can do it by 24, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to make that work before 2026.
They were kind of like,
that's the best case.
Yeah, they were kind of like, you know what, we're going to give it the old, forgive the expression, college try to get this in by 24. but we'll definitely have this by 20. I just think it's hilarious that the presidents looked at the ADs and were like, enough. We're doing this.
My favorite comments was with the ACC commissioner, Jim Phillips, and he, in January when they shot it down, the whole Lions shot down thing, he said something along the lines that the membership is very much aligned in this position, but now is not the time to expand. And then wait, it gets better. Then let's fast forward to just last week. The ACC has been clear from the start that it supports CFP expansion, and we are grateful for the ongoing discussions.
Oh, it has been clear from the start?
Yeah, I got to call major BS on that. That's a crock of something, and it doesn't smell very good. Basically, he was read the Riot Act, and he's like, and he's being told to toe the company line because the president's got tired of this. I mean, this is just absolutely, it's ridiculous how they've kind of 180'd. Because here's the thing, it's still the same time frame.
Yeah, but that also shows you who wears the pants in the room. It's the presidents.
The presidents make the choices. Ultimately they're the ones who make the choices, not the commissioners, not the athletic directors. It's the presidents who have to sign off on this stuff.
Right. And they're the guys who, at the end of the day, they're the guys who drive the bus. What does this mean for, given what we've seen with realignment, what does this mean for the Pac-12? Do you think this gives them a bit of a lifeboat?
No, I don't think it changes anything. And the truth is that, with, it comes down to the money aspect. These schools need the budget to be able to make things meet. They're not going to get it. The conference just doesn't have value, and it's not going to change anything. Sure, you're going to get some access, and you're going to get an incremental amount as a result of getting in, because there's going to be a per unit basis, kind of like the NCAA tournament. Per unit, school that gets in, you already got some guarantees and whatnot. But they're not going to get enough to make it worthwhile. And once the Big Ten decides, you know what, we have a possibility of strangling the TV ratings, which, if they can get the Western flank taken care of, they can strangle the TV ratings. Then the Pac-12 is a dead man walking.
Eric, you're a G5 conference. Are you happy right now?
You better be, because this is as good as it's going to get. So shut the hell up. That would be my advice to the G5s. This is you should be grateful. You ought to be thanking Greg Sankey's and like Jack Swarbrick's and say thank you very much, because you might get 2 spots out of this, depending on certain years. If the conference champions, say the American and the Sun Belt, for example, maybe get finished at 5th or 6th. The one thing I like is we have some criteria, because I have said for 5-6 years, give me some criteria, then we can have a discussion about this playoff. And I think at least we're going in that direction. I agree with Drew. I don't think this helps the Pac-12 at all, because if I'm Oregon and Washington, I would rather make more money and be the 3rd best or 4th best team in the Big Ten, because I'll make the playoff anyway, than being the 2nd place team in the Pac-12 and make, nothing. So I think this is great news for the ACC for now, because I think this will keep them until next decade, at least somewhat satisfied. If I'm the Big 12 and I'm UCF, I'm not really crazy about the 6 conference champions, because I want as many at-large as available. And I just don't think the Big 12 is going to get more than, at best, 2 bids in a year. I think the SEC and the Big 10 will dominate the at-large bids. I think Notre Dame, 9, all right, for argument's sake, 10 wins easily gets into the playoff. So to me, the rich will get richer, and the little guys will get the little scraps, and they'll get beat up in the first round on the road.
I don't necessarily share your optimism on Notre Dame. I think that they, at best, depending on who the loss is, if they have any more than 1 loss, they're out.
No. Notre Dame will get Notre Dame with. Remember, you're going to have teams with 3 losses. You're going to have teams with 3 losses get into the playoff. If you think they're going to put in a 1-loss team from a conference that nobody cares about,
you are not going to get 3-loss teams.
I will bet you any money you want, Notre Dame will get in over a Big 12 2nd or 3rd place team. It's going to happen.
No, I don't
Brand,
see. Wait,
look at the TV numbers. Look at the TV numbers.
So you're saying, let's say for argument's sake, you get a Houston.
Yep.
Large TV market.
Yep.
Okay. Number 4 TV market in the country.
Correct.
Goes 11-1.
Yeah.
Somehow finishes in 3rd place and gets frozen out of the Big 12 championship.
Yep.
They're going to put 10-2 Notre Dame in over
absolutely.
them?
100%. Absolutely.
No
they do it now.
No way.
Notre Dame, they do it now. Notre Dame finished 5th this past year. Look at who they beat. They beat barely anybody. No, you're right.
Drew, talk some sense into this, man.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of going in the middle here. A 2-loss Notre Dame's going to get it.
Thank you.
A 2-loss team. A 3? No.
Who did they lose to?
Last year they lost to Cincinnati and some bag of potato chips that I can't
Oak
think
State.
of.
Oak State in the bowl game. Oak State in the bowl game.
I mean, if you have a Notre Dame team that goes 10-2 and loses to Navy, no, I'm sorry.
Well,
if Navy's
remember,
good,
they lost to
they
Navy
would.
when Navy was good.
Correct.
I mean, it's all about context. Who's good that particular year.
But Eric's out here saying that 9-3 and they're guaranteed.
I think 9-3 can get them in.
No,
I think they can absolutely. If Notre Dame, let's say Notre Dame this year. Let me just play. Let's say this year Notre Dame goes 9-3, loses to Ohio State, loses to Clemson, and let's say they lose to USC, who wins the Pac-12. They're going to get in. They're going to get in.
No,
you guys may not like it, but they're going to get in because you're going to have mediocrity.
But Eric, it matters how everyone else does. It really does.
Right.
Now, what helps them is the fact that the Pac-12 has started off so poorly.
Exactly, and nobody's going to respect the Big 12 without OU and Texas. Now, they got
to prove it. They got to prove it on the field.
They got to prove it, and I don't
expect them out the door.
And this sport,
Oklahoma State does have some goodwill. They've been a team that was shut out of the BCS national championship game a decade ago. So they've proven that they can get to that level. Baylor not far off, so there is some goodwill there.
Got to prove it, but you would agree. Got to prove it non-conference, and that's the one.
Always.
Hopefully, this will encourage more non-conference quality games moving forward. But
let me hit something real quick on that. Because this isn't changing. Most of these power conferences have rules in place that require a power conference as your out-of-conference schedule. Yeah. So you're still going to have the Big 12 is still part of that. So they're going to have legitimate out-of-conference games still available. The question is, can a program like a UCF, who's going to probably be a mid-range to get started, are they going to be able to lock in more solid out-of-conference games? They're going to need it. Florida isn't enough.
I agree.
It's great that they have them, and I'm actually happy they have 3 matchups, and I hope they stay on the schedule. I know the first one will, but let's hope the others all work out. All signs point that they'll stay because of state pressure, but you never know until it happens.
Well, I've seen no indication that they would leave.
Well, they came out and said that we want to keep these because it's the state of Florida, and you don't want that kind of in-state. You don't want in-state politics to start getting in the way of things. And if you back out, now you open the door for in-state politics to start messing with you. Even though they're the flagship school, you're gonna bring pressure down on you that's unnecessary. There's other games you can get rid of once because the schedule is gonna have to be messed around a little bit once they get to 16.
Well, and that's the only concern. The only concern there, Drew, is if the SEC, for example, decides to go to 9 conference games, Florida will have to drop somebody. And I know in one of those years that they play UCF, they also play Miami and Florida State, I believe, I think, or Sanford. It was some combination like that. So if it gets to 9, that's where I start worrying. But I agree everything what you just said. UCF's going to have to schedule well. You're not going to get rewarded finishing second in the Big 12. That's my point.
No, but they will get in if they win the Big 12.
I agree. Yeah. No, I agree. I 100%.
So from that standpoint, UCF, the Big 12, this isn't a bad thing for the Big 12. You kind of made it sound it was a little more doom and gloom. This isn't a bad thing. This is a guarantee in because they are all but guaranteed.
Yeah, but nobody's ever happy in this sport. And what's going to happen in 5-6 years? Jeff's going to do this podcast upset that the SEC gets 3 bids every year and that the Big 12 only gets 1 or 2 bids. That's where we're headed with this. And that's
except your role. The Big 12 is basically going to be a mid-tier. It's going to be you have the Big 2, the mid 2. or 3, and then the lower guys.
Right.
We got to accept where you are in the pecking order, and this is our new reality. Yeah, the Big 12 may get 2 in, and if something weird happens, maybe a third. If it's a crazy season.
Right.
But I think two out of the Big 12 is a very realistic chance.
It depends.
With a good season.
So what you're saying, Eric, and I think Drew, you probably agree, is that like a normal year with in this format, 12 teams, top 6 conference titles. You're thinking it's going to be 3 SEC, 3 Big Ten. That gets us to 6. 2 ACC,
possibly.
That's 8. 2 Big 12. That's 10. All right, so that's 4 conference champions, and then
we'll see what happens.
American and Mountain West champion.
Well, in the Pac-12, if it's still around, sure.
Or the Pac-12 champ and the American champ.
We got to see how this all plays out. Again, Notre Dame's going to have a seat in the table. They're going to have a seat in the table. I'm telling you.
But Notre Dame does not get in on the auto 4. They cannot qualify.
I agree.
4 seeds. So
all they need. Right. If they get 10 wins, let's say. All right, I'll give you.
10 wins gives you a 2-loss team. That's what I said.
Be in.
2-loss team will be in.
All right.
It depends on. I think it depends on who those 2 losses are to.
I disagree. It's Notre Dame. They're going to be it. But here's the bigger question with the playoff that I have that nobody's asked this question because the majority of the media, not Ross Dellinger, he's good, but the rest of them are just cheerleading pom-poms and don't ask the real questions. One of them being when. When is this playoff going to take place? And I'm not talking about the year. I'm talking about the month. Is it going to be December or it's going to be January?
That was
we talked about this, and I actually want to bring this up because we talked about it in our we have a little message thread. We go back and forth, and we actually had a really good discussion about this.
Yeah.
Prior to last year,
Drew, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but hang tight on that for 1 second because there is a bullet point on this on what Ross Dellinger reported, and I wanted to get this out there. The model allows for first-round games to be played either the 2nd or 3rd weekend in December in a way that best accommodates the format and the participating teams, with at least 12 days between the conference championship games and the first-round games. The management committee would make the final determination of the calendar. So at least we have a little bit of something to work with there.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's start that. So Eric brought up 2 points during our discussion: the issue of the NFL playoffs and the issue of Army Navy. Well, I kind of brought up Army Navy, but with the change of the NFL schedule going from this 16 games to 17 games, pushes the wild card weekend back. So as a result, you don't have to change your national title game. You can stay. You can stay where you are. This means the first game, the first round, could be the week after Army Navy. Thus, 2 weeks, 14 days after conference championship, Saturday, right. and that gives it the window to push it earlier to Thursday, 12 days after conference championship. So you have, because you need 4 weeks, and that gives you your 4 weeks. You got third and fourth week in December, either the 5th week of December or 1st week in January, however it plays out, and then the championship game on that following Monday, which will be the week, the Monday before wild card weekend now, because the NFL schedule is pushed 1 week further. So it actually, the schedule possibility is already there. It's now just about implementing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least they have a framework for that.
But as long keep it, just don't go against the NFL, please. Just don't be stupid. Like, this is the same group that thought it was a great idea to put a semifinals on New Year's Eve, thinking that people would change their, habits of celebrating a ball dropping to celebrate a new year. So that's why I'm a little skeptical.
They did it once. They made a mistake. They did
twice. No, it's been twice.
Well, yeah, but they didn't care. The second time they didn't mark
twice. But I think we are. But I think we are headed. And this is the political part of it that I think is really interesting is with the Pac-12 now on the ropes. That's half the Rose Bowl. The presidents can now turn to the Rose Bowl and say, "Look, you need to play ball now, because we're going to take away one of your conferences."
No, they don't.
And the Rose Bowl is going to sit there and say, we have that time slot on January 1st. They could say, fine, you're not going to be a part of the rotation.
And the Rose Bowl can still survive with that. They're the one bowl that doesn't.
It'll survive, but it'll be one step above the Idaho Potato Bowl.
No. Drew's right. The Rose Bowl is by far the most important bowl game. Like, it draws ratings when look at Ohio State Utah last year. It drew a monster number. It'll actually draw better than most of the playoff ratings, even if it's
hold on right there. I think it draws well because of the time slot that it's in, 3:30 Eastern,
and habits.
On January 1st. If you move the Rose Bowl somewhere else and you put the Fiesta Bowl in that time slot, guess what gets the ratings? The Fiesta Bowl.
No, it doesn't. It
does.
It's been proven.
Yes, it does, especially if it's a national semifinal.
Wherever the Big Ten goes, the viewership will follow. The numbers speak for themselves.
The Big Ten speaks for itself.
We've already seen it with this past week. Ohio State, Notre Dame, one of the best week one games they've had in recent memory.
Yeah.
And then, Michigan in a cakewalk against Colorado State ended up being number 4. I mean, it wasn't even a good matchup. So, I mean, Big Ten gets eyeballed. That's why they're getting $100 million a year contract.
I don't doubt that. I'm just saying yes, they get eyeballs, but it doesn't matter where the hell the game's played.
The Rose Bowl
doesn't matter if it's played in Pasadena, Phoenix, or Anchorage.
Nah, there's something special with the Rose Bowl.
That's old fogey talking.
That's still the case today. Game.
You guys are giving way too much credence to something that doesn't exist.
Jeff, I grew up in this area.
That matters.
In Big Ten country, it matters.
Drew,
yes, but that's 30 years ago.
No, Drew, would you not agree? There's a lot of people in the Midwest not happy of USC, UCLA being in the Big Ten because of the Rose Bowl.
Get over it.
They're still not happy with Nebraska being in the Big Ten.
Well, they can get the hell over it.
It's not about getting over it. It's about that's the mindset. I mean, you have to understand. The mindset down in the South is one thing. The Midwest is something else. You have to understand and respect that.
No, you don't have to respect it. Evolve.
Sure, it's tradition. No, it's tradition.
Evolve, adapt, or die.
Anyway, all right, let's move forward.
The Masters, a tradition
unlike any other, right? People like tradition and nostalgia. Look
at what's happened with Live Golf. It's going to kill the Masters. Watch.
No, it isn't. That might be the dumbest thing I've heard in this history of the show.
They're going to kill the PGA Tour.
Or they're going to kill the PGA Tour.
Not the Masters. The Masters will survive and be fine.
Yeah, the majors. That's all anybody cares about. All right. But it's a good segue. The playoff games. On campus versus bowl games. Where are these games going to be held at? That's the other question. What do we have? What do we know about that? For those,
I believe it was already written that campus would have the first round.
Yeah, first.
What about the quarterfinals?
Those would be during the bowls.
Oh, so basically you're saying that the regular season doesn't matter. Congratulations, guys. So basically, when Ohio State plays Michigan, you're playing for a bye week.
No, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop you right there, because the regular season does matter.
Why? No, it doesn't.
Because there are 130 teams in FBS college football, and even if it drops down to 70 with the big,
that would be great. That'd be a great number.
Even if it drops down to 70,
that's a good
with
number.
with major college football, guess what? There's only 12 spots. So you can't tell me that the regular season doesn't matter. When 58 teams at least are not going to make it. Sorry.
That's a talking point to try to scare down the expansion of the
Exactly.
They said the same thing about
it makes no sense. It's a dumb talking point.
They said the same thing
No. Hey, let me look. Who won the Super Bowl? The Rams didn't have a bye week.
The NFL doesn't matter.
The point is, it doesn't matter in college. That's the whole point. Ohio State can lose to Michigan for the next 10 years. It won't matter because they're going to be in the playoff. As long as they beat Michigan in the playoff, just like North Carolina beat Duke in the Final Four.
There you go. You're assuming that Ohio State and Michigan and some of these teams are going to be good every year.
Yes.
And that's not true.
Yes.
Michigan was only going to make the playoffs maybe 4 or 5 years.
Well, I meant Ohio State is my point.
Programs go through cycles.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Yes.
Not Ohio State. Nope.
Yes, Ohio State.
Ohio State
was a bad team at the turn of the century. They went
that's because they shot
Drew.
That's because of John Cooper. What do you think? John Cooper's coming back?
Yeah, I got news for you. Michigan wasn't all that great until recently.
Yeah,
and you keep telling me that Michigan's going to be great every year. Guess what? They've only made the playoffs once.
That's because they lose to Ohio State every year. But if you have an expanded playoff now, Michigan can get in. They'll be in at 16.
Look at Miami. Look at Florida State. Look at Florida.
Yeah, they have a better
Florida
chance
State
to be in now.
Yeah, 10 years
But
ago,
they were
everyone
the
was saying
pinnacle.
Florida's going to be good forever. Guess
All
what?
right. Here, whatever. Here's the other point, because I want to bring this up. John Oran made a point of this. Look for Amazon to get involved in this. He reported on the Marchand and Oran podcast, which just came out as we're recording this, that Amazon will be aggressive to get those early round playoff games. I know you're snickering, but these people will take all money. These are prostitutes. They will take money from anywhere. If you put one playoff game on Amazon, you have just tarnished your playoff completely. Don't do that.
I'm definitely I'm intrigued with how Amazon's going to be able to break in, because we know that part of the change of wait until 2026 is about getting away from the single carrier. That was what the Big Ten really wanted. They wanted the Foxes and the CBSs
Right.
to get involved. So I'm actually very intrigued of how the streaming side, and I don't think they're going to actually be able to pony up enough. I mean, yeah, Amazon's got a lot, but I don't think they're actually going to pony up enough for one game or two games. I don't think their sports budget really fits it yet. They're still. I think they're going to wait and see how the NFL plays out.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
a
think
little
you're right
bit
about that.
before.
Yeah, I think the
they'll
Thursday
make it
night
in this
package is the
contract.
guinea pig. But
Yeah.
again, I think, and they were close to the Big Ten. They were close to getting the Big Ten, NBC with the Peacock. They decided to go in a different direction because they got NBC and CBS involved. But Amazon was on the table for the Big
But
Ten.
Peacock isn't going to get relevant stuff. They're getting hand-me-down stuff. So they understand the value of the set top versus the streaming package.
Right.
And I think the people in charge of the CFP is going to agree with that. You don't see anything on ESPN Plus. I mean, they use ESPN 3, as a kind of a wraparound part, but it's still primarily on ESPN. So I don't think we're going to see a streaming partner, at least this time around. Maybe in the next contract.
I could see that. That's fair.
But I don't think it's going to be this round.
Well, I hope you're right, Drew.
I don't think it is either, because it's the habits haven't changed just yet. There's still real questions about the quality of the telecast that you're going to get, the quality of the infrastructure that Amazon has in order to handle that. That's still an open question. We don't know.
They're going to have to pony up a lot of resources to even have the infrastructure to do this.
Well, they already own most of it with AWS, with Amazon Web Services, and that infrastructure is going to get taxed to its absolute limit, especially as we get later on in the season. More people start logging on to watch Thursday night football games that have playoff implications. So they have a lot to prove here, and we still have yet to see. It could be great. It could be a total disaster.
Well, they're off to a good start. They're off to a good start.
We don't know. We don't know if they're off to a good
and
start.
Over 1 million viewers for a meaningless preseason game. I think that's a good start.
It was curiosity's sake. We're going to see how good of a start they are in.
I wouldn't poo-poo it as curiosity's sake. I think it was the
regular season.
It was the starving appetite of football. It was the starving appetite for football.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that they have to prove is, what talent are they going to have? Al Michaels is not going to live forever. So who's going to?
But it's the same thing as we were just talking about with programs. You go up and down, you retool, you find new talent.
Broadcasters move around all the time and could do multi. That's not a concern.
Because you're going to have the Foxes and the CBSs and all them. They're going to be bringing up new talent in the NFL and whatnot, and then they'll be able to sign them over. That's not a worry. I don't think talent is a big issue. It's more the fact of, can they handle 2-3 times the bandwidth that one of those games has, and the NFL package will help build that up, because they're going to run into hiccups. They're going to have hiccups. That's part of the new thing.
And your internet providers too, because they own the rails, and so it's going to be, we have not seen NFL football or this kind of this degree of streaming tested to this point.
I don't think the at home is an issue, only for the fact of people have been streaming football and other sports for a while with ESPN Plus and everything. The streaming level doesn't really change all that much. It's just going to be volume from the Amazon side. You're still streaming video.
I would be curious to know.
Disney Plus isn't going to make a difference.
Okay, but I would be curious to know what it's going to be like in outside of urban areas where you have less internet infrastructure, where the internet infrastructure that you have is a little older than it is.
Well, remember,
not as well kept.
Well, Amazon reached a deal with DirecTV, so you could go to a bar and watch the games this year on Thursday. So
people don't want to go to bars anymore, man.
What are you talking about?
To Jeff,
yeah,
Eric,
I think people will still go.
To Jeff's defense, he's got a valid point there. My guess is Amazon will work with rural, networks.
Yeah, that'll work it at. That'll work.
I think you guys are arm waving that a little bit.
It's football. They're going to make it work. This ain't the MLS where like nobody cares. People care about football. This is a bigger problem than you're making it out to be. And listen, if it works, great, good for Amazon. That's like walking on the moon in the content business. Go ahead, Drew.
Let me flip the script a little bit to actually support Jeff's position when it comes to the stream. You're going to eventually have a point where you hit a technology wall, where you have to go to the next level of resolution.
Right.
And then that just takes more.
Yeah,
but that's going to be years down the road, and let's hope
that's happening sooner than you think, man.
Yeah,
people are going to want to watch these games. They're going to want to watch these games in Dolby Digital Surround with 4K resolution, and then as soon as we get past that,
it's not a thing yet. Right now, ESPN has been using 720 for the longest time.
Right, but
there's a certain point, because that's base HD, not full HD. There's going to be a certain point where they're going to have to go up to 2K and then eventually 4K. And there's going to be demand. The customers will start demanding for
it. They're already experimenting out there with 8K.
All right. Well, this has gone way too geeky of a show. Bottom line, if you're UCF,
you brought it on.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to go this geeky of a route. Because I don't want the playoffs to be on Amazon.
Yeah, well, that's your own damn fault.
Anyway, just win the Big 12 if you're UCF. Otherwise, you're not in the playoff, more than likely. All right? That's the more of the story.
All right. Drew is at Statboy Drew on Twitter.
He's sticking around. He's going to give us a volleyball jersey
he's going to stick around. Yeah, because we're going to bring Bryson in for segment 3 here in a little bit on the other side of the break to talk soccer, cross country, and volleyball when we return. Stick around. The Black Gold Banneret Podcast is back after this. We are back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Drew with you, and Bryson Turner is in the house with us now to talk a little bit volleyball, cross country, soccer, as we have our first full weekend of UCF sports going on. I want to start with volleyball, which got their season off. Their regular season launched a week later than everyone else because of a quirk in the schedule. And Coach Daz and I talked about that in the preseason preview that we had with him, but they started with 2 matches, Friday and Saturday. Friday, they opened up the season by sweeping the Syracuse Orange, who were coached by Bakir Ghanastratnam, who had spent 11 years at Temple. And so UCF was pretty familiar with his system, but came over to Syracuse. And after what was a rather competitive first set, UCF came out on top and then put them away. The storyline from that match was McKenna Melville getting her 2,000th kill, which makes her only the second UCF Knight to do that. She's also the only active player in America with 2,000 career kills. Let's go ahead and hear from McKenna real quick on that.
Means I have a good team around me. To be able to get 2,000, first of all, I totally forgot about it. Somebody told me a while ago, I totally forgot. So I remember when I got my 1,000th, I was 4 kills away in this game, and it took me like 3.5 sets. So I just blanked numbers out of my head. Because I am a math person, I'm always trying to calculate, what was my passing average? How was I hitting? If I just flush the numbers and just play the game, just normally goes better, normally goes in my favor a lot more.
Fitting that you got it with an Amber Olsen set you up, right? You two back together. It had to be that way.
Oh, yeah. Me and her have talked at length. We were like, all right, we're staying together. It's an all or nothing deal, and that's what we decided back in November. It's like we're coming together. To have her with me is really important, and I think we kind of go yin and yang. We understand each other enough now for 5 years, so we know what we're doing.
That's McKenna Melville at following the Syracuse match, which UCF won. And then the following day, they had to come back, and it was this is one of the better matches that we've seen in recent times, as the Knights went 5 against the Kansas State Wildcats in what really felt like a Big 12 match. against a Big 12 opponent. First time UCF has played a Big 12 opponent since 2019. And the Knights came back from down 2-1 to force a fifth and get the job done. Melville added another 27 kills. And UCF wins the match in 5 in thrilling fashion. Eric, you were on the mic for both of those matches. Pretty much what we expected from this team, but let's put McKenna Melville aside for the moment because she's almost a given at this point. Who were the players who you thought really stepped it up for UCF in these first 2 matches of the season?
Well, I think Abby Hansen, for one, the transfer from Oregon, I think gives them an offensive option in the middle that they haven't had.
Yep.
I'm talking to Meg Fitzgerald. I think this is the most talented offense they've had. They have more variety offensively where they could score from different ways, and one of them being up the middle. I really like the Claudia Dillon, Abby Hansen combo. Zumock on the right, on the opposite side, really was big after a struggle in the first set. She was really good against Kansas State. So,
Emily Wilson too, I thought.
Wilson, yeah. Todd even had said, I asked him in the post after Kansas State. He acknowledges this is the deepest team he's had, so they can go a lot of different ways, variety-wise, with them. So I think those stands out. I think the liberos with Chloe Shear and Grimes, a year older, is solid. So look, I think they're really talented offensively. The question will be, obviously we said before the season, you don't have Amory Watson, you don't have Narissa Moravec, you lose something defensively. I think they're better offensively. How do they offset for what you lose blocking wise? Is it a small deal? Can Claudia Dillon looks even better? Can she make up with that with some of the blocks? It looks like she can, possibly, with Hansen. So it's an up-tempo offense, has more power. That's been a word that's been used a lot around that program right now, power in their offense. So very pleased. I think you have to be excited from that standpoint. That Kansas State win was a big win for them because Kansas State's probably an NCAA tournament team. And, they're going to play Miami coming up here this weekend. That's a mega matchup because if you're UCF, you've got to build resume wins here if you want to accomplish your goals or at least be in the mix to host.
Yeah, they got Wilmington on Friday, UNC Wilmington, Miami Saturday, and then Sunday against Illinois, Chicago. The other player I thought, performed pretty well or actually, before we get to that, I wanted to talk about one of the other things that happened during the Kansas State match was we had an addition to the Ring of Honor in a Kansas native, Emily Watts. Now Emily Lambert was inducted. I remember playing during the time when I was a student from 02 to 04. One of the really a truly great, just a rock solid right side, 29 kills in the 2003 ASUN championship match. And was a real, I thought, a real star on the other side from Tanya Jarvis. Who will also get inducted later this year. And of course, Meg Fitzgerald herself is going to get inducted as well, along with Delana Sarden. So a good start to honoring, and catching up on honoring some of the great players in history. And, it's hard for us not to feel old seeing some of those people, right, Eric?
Yeah, it is. But it was good for Todd. I think Todd even said he had the players watch the ceremony. I think it's important for them to know the tradition of the program. So I always like that. I'm a big fan of that, the Ring of Honor, and I think the selections were worthy, and it was fun. It added to it on Saturday night, and that was fun. And we know this. McKenna will be there soon down the road at the pack track she's going. And, Amber Olsen, we have to address, she turned her ankle Friday night against
Syracuse. Was a little scary. That happened right in front of me in the PA spot. I started having flashbacks to Kia Bright when that happened, but she walked it off and went right back out there.
Yeah, I watched her at practice Saturday. She said she was determined to play. This is Kansas State's a big mention. You couldn't tell that she was even less than 100%. So she was tremendous too, running that offense because she's a big part of it because they go up tempo.
One other player I think that I wanted to mention, I'm sorry I didn't mention before. You mentioned, how do you make up for the blocking? And I think that one of the players who certainly made up for that and also held her own offensively was Heidi Bondi. She's 6'4", yeah. She's a sophomore. Todd held her out of the first set against Kansas. And also she didn't play that. I don't think she played against Syracuse at all.
No, she didn't play against Syracuse. She brought her in for K-State.
And he brought her in for K-State in the second, and she totally turned the match around. Because she's, remember, she's 6'4", and she's listed as an outside hitter. but that's the kind of player that, you were talking about, how do you make up for a player who was number 3 all time in UCF in blocks per set and Ursa Moravec? Well, it's kind of the Moneyball theory, right? You can kind of make up for her in pieces, and Bondi is one of those pieces, I think.
No doubt. They got a lot of pieces. We'll see how they look here. This weekend, they've got Wilmington and UIC. The big one is the Saturday night one against Miami.
Yeah,
that's major ramifications. These teams always play 5 setters. They got one of the best setters in the country, Miami does, in Savannah Vac, who had a triple-double against UCF last year. They got a great middle blocker in Janice Leao. And look, for Miami UCF, this is big. They both have aspirations to host. I think this is a bigger game for UCF because Miami might have more swings at getting quality wins in the ACC than UCF will in the American. And look, Drew, all right, I make a note of this, Drew, because every fan base complains about the college football poll. Oh, why is this team ranked so high? Oh, no respect. So UCF got 55 preseason votes, the highest they've ever got, okay? Didn't play first weekend. Got knocked down to 13 votes. Okay, all right, I get it. You didn't play, whatever. You beat Syracuse, you beat Kansas State. You're going to pick up some votes, right? No, they dropped to 6 votes. Are you kidding me?
What people forget about the top 25 polls. Oh, well, they should be at least like 37, 36. Someone has to say you're worthy of being in the top 25. Someone has to vote you in the top 25 to get points. The problem is you're using a great example of recency bias. What have you done for me lately? And you guys only played 2 matches. Others, look at Kansas State. Kansas State's played 6. The resume is just not there. I think in the end it'll balance out. But
I think
UCF's been dogged. Look at how they did in the coaches poll in was it last year? They never got a single vote from American coaches.
You're right. That's the thing. Is that
I'm the pettiest drunk.
Is that there were, I think there were, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think there were 2 coaches from the American who had AVCA votes.
Right.
Neither of them voted for UCF at all last year.
All year.
Ouch.
All year.
That's good. Yeah, look, I mean, my point is people complain about football, but at least in football, who's voting. And they actually, if you look at it, they do give the non-brand team some love. Now, you may think they're not ranked high enough, etc., but like the Americans had multiple teams in the ranked, the Mountain West, etc. That ain't happening in a lot of these Olympic sports. It's 10 times worse.
So let me ask you, Eric. Let me ask you, is this a case of there's not enough voters? Because look at the AP poll. The AP was at 63 voters, 67, somewhere in that range. So you get a very large swath of writers across the country. And that's how you're able to get little bits here and there. Is there not enough voters at that point?
I don't even know. It's not so much that because you can't expect, in the Olympic sports, you can't have like everybody vote. But I think it's just perception. I think UCF will benefit from in the Big 12 from that standpoint. Like, it's clear. I mean, say what you will, but the volleyball community does not respect the American Conference at all.
Yeah, look at the Big 12. Most recent.
One thing that I'm looking, because I'm looking at the rankings right now, and I'm not seeing Kansas State on there, and I'm wondering if that has to partly do with the fact that if they weren't ranked before, and UCF went to a 5th set against them, that could have contributed.
Hey, you shouldn't be losing votes for winning.
Hold on, I'm not done yet. I'm saying that if that is indeed the case, then we really need to put some stock on their upcoming matchups against Miami, who has the most votes not ranked in the top 25, and then Kansas, who's ranked number 19.
Right. No, that's my point. That, you see, if you're patient, we would have gotten there. That was my whole point. That's why the Miami match and the Kansas match are critical from that standpoint, because you're not going to get credit for it. You could go undefeated in the American and win in straight sets. You're not going to get credit. Not in this sport. Not in this sport.
In any sport that has a bad conference. I mean, the American is a bad conference when it comes to the sport. You have UCF and a pack of Skittles. I mean, There's really nothing there.
Man,
Wow.
Drew
Bag
selling
of Skittles.
Houston and Cincinnati way short on that one. It's a better conference than that.
Well,
M&M? Maybe an M&M.
I'm
Yeah,
not
I would say
Missouri, but
M&M
I'm going to have
over
to pull out the show me on that because they certainly have not shown me that for the
No,
last
but
4
look,
years that UCF's dominated.
Well, and that's why if you're UCF, you got to root for Cincinnati and Houston to do well. I think Cincinnati ended up beating FSU.
Well, if you're
week.
UCF, you should always be rooting for your American brethren to do well.
Thank you for saying. Thank you. Yes, say that because there's.
By the way, we should do that in all sports. By the way,
you should.
The vast preference is for every other team to win all their other games. Every other team on UCF scheduled to win as many of their games as possible.
I was seeing like a lot of people were happy that Cincinnati lost to Arkansas. And I'm saying if Cincinnati beats Arkansas, that's good news for you because that makes that Cincinnati game bigger later in the year.
That makes it a better win if UCF beats Cincinnati.
Again, the petty is strong, and a lot of people don't see the big picture. They just see what's in front of them.
But it is interesting, though, because I think volleyball has a hard time cracking the top 25, whereas women's soccer, they get in. They beat a bad Florida team and drew LSU, and they got in right away. So it's just interesting, the dynamics. Baseball always gets in ranked if they do well. Softball gets in quicker. It's fascinating, the variety of sports and how they perceive those respective UCF teams. It's fascinating from that standpoint. But the most important part before we move on, Mr. Drew Glukoff, our expert Jersey man. UCF going bold here, sleeveless look here.
Now before we get into that though, I wanted to bring up a couple points about this, and I mentioned this in the volleyball recap. Number one, the players had input on this along with the internal design team. That's why you'll notice the knighted font was used. Now we saw the black jerseys. They're actually incomplete. They're supposed to come with a long sleeve undershirt that hasn't arrived yet. And I was told over the weekend that wait till you see the look with the undershirt because that's seriously awesome. All right. I'm like, okay, cool. We're also waiting on, and this is also the case with soccer too. We're waiting on the white jerseys to come in.
Yeah, the soccer kids there, they don't even, it was just
they haven't even gotten any of theirs yet.
They don't have anything yet.
They're still in a shipping container somewhere. But I thought that Drew, I want your evaluations on this because the players absolutely loved what was revealed to them, and they posted a video of it too.
Let's start with just the design aspect. You look at comparing last year's to this year. Last year is a very, if you want to go describe it to like a football jersey, it's a lot like the black nitro jersey, the black Knight, where it had a collared neckline along with the Michigan State numbering system. So this new black one that they introduced is a lot like UCF's night mode in football.
Very much so. In fact, they called it night mode.
It's because, and that's Terry Mohajir's thing. He wanted something devoid of all white, black and gold. And I like to point out black and gold. Gold being used as the accent, the secondary color.
Yes, we know you don't want gold as the main color. Okay, carry on.
If I hit it enough times, people who haven't quite figured it out might figure it out.
No,
I have those
who haven't figured it out by now don't want to figure it out. That's the thing.
You can't give up on the crusade of helping a hopeless cause. I'm trying here. So the new ones,
we only have so much time, Drew.
Yeah. The new design, it's actually also a little more form-fitting as opposed to the old ones. And I think that has to do with the fact that because it's sleeveless, you have to tighten them up. But once you get that undershirt, I think that undershirt is going to really, really wrap it up and kind of make it almost like vest style.
It was interesting because they were saying that this is much more of a European style uniform because in Europe you watch professional women's volleyball teams, they wear tanks, they don't wear long sleeves.
Yeah, and I think it looked good. And the fact that you had a lot of arm sleeves to make up for the lack of sleeves, so that those, as you guys know from your time in gymnasium class as a kid, sliding on the floor hurts, and that burns, and you're going to scrape yourself up.
Not just that, Drew, but also, a 75-mile-an-hour volleyball coming in and hitting your arms.
Yeah, that hurts too.
That also hurts. So, but yeah, the players loved it. The reviews were fantastic.
I think more and more
to me,
people,
the most important thing is do the players like it? Yeah, they loved it.
I think more people are learning to embrace this new font. I think originally people thought the old font was somehow uniquely UCF's. It never was.
It wasn't. No.
And a lot of people, I think, are finally realizing it wasn't UCF's number. And I think that's finally starting to get in people's heads of, hey, this font, this whole numbering font and the names, it's a unique font that is UCF's now proprietary font.
I would love for them to release it as a downloadable font, and charge $5 for it or something.
Oh, I'd pay $5 for that.
Oh my God, I would too.
Donate it $5 to the Charge On Fund. Get the font.
Boom, and you put it on your computer. You can do whatever it is. Here's the other thing that's cool about, and I wanted to make this one last point before we move on to soccer, is. We talked about how, Drew, you've mentioned many times, there's a very good possibility UCF moves on possibly from Nike at some point in the next couple of years. Possibility we stay, there's a possibility we might not. That font being designed in-house means that it is now portable.
It is.
And I think that's value really important. There's tremendous value in that because, you can say, because a lot of fans complain, and I see it on social media all the time, oh, well, there are not a lot, but a few very, very vocal fans are complaining about the possibility of moving away from Nike. Look, if you keep the bulk of your design elements in-house and you can take them from manufacturer to manufacturer, that creates consistency in your brand, which is a rare thing when you move, if and when you decide to move from one apparel provider to the other.
Well, no matter what, there's going to be differences. That's a given.
Yeah, but those differences are alleviated at least somewhat by that. So that's just a point that I want to make. It's a brilliant strategic move by UCF, and kudos again to the design team who have nailed it once again. All right, let's flip over to soccer. I want to talk about the women's side. They're 2-1-2. Their next game is Thursday They were scheduled to play at North Florida on Thursday. That game got wiped due to weather. Florida strikes again. But then they were back home on Sunday, September the 4th, to play Ole Miss. Eric, you were on the mic again for this one. They fell down 2-0. Came back, scored a goal in the 47th minute. Anna Henderson from Deanna Martin on a great pass by Deanna, Deanna Martin has turned, I think, into the point guard for this team. And she was able to create opportunities late. They had one that went off the woodwork in the last couple of minutes. But this team ran step for step with Ole Miss, didn't get the result. What was your evaluation off the end of that game? I know that they were pretty disappointed that they couldn't at least get a draw out of that one, because Lord knows at certain points in the second half, they played well enough to do it. Still, it was their first loss of the season. Still, they're at 2-1-2 as they get ready to play North Carolina on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, they lost a quality team in Ole Miss, Sweet 16 type caliber team, I think Ole Miss is. I think the disappointing part for them is they just didn't come out well. Ole Miss dominated pretty much the first 20, 25 minutes of that match. After that, you could argue UCF, especially in the second half, outplayed Ole Miss, hit a post a couple times.
Yeah.
Could have easily gotten a draw. I mean, they have a tremendous goalkeeper in Ashley Orkis, does Ole Miss, who's a two-time SEC goalkeeper of the year.
But even so, they got a couple past her and just
got one. Yeah.
Couldn't fit it in the frame.
So, it was a tight match. I think, talking to Tim Sahadak, the associate head coach afterwards, he was just disappointed the way they came out. I think he felt like if they would have played like they did the last 70 minutes or so, the first 20 minutes, maybe it's a different match and things like that. He was kind of perplexed, but that's what this team has to learn, is to play a full 90, and that's what it's going to take when they go to North Carolina, as this schedule gets a lot harder now with Carolina coming Chapel Hill. Then you've got Memphis for conference and Texas on the road at some point. So that's the thing. They got to play for a full 90 minutes. Now, the big story, before you wonder how if this impacted perhaps how UCF started, Kristen Scott was a late scratch. Bryson, let's go to you here, because you've been talking to your sources about what actually happened. Tell us what your sources told you about what happened to Kristen Scott. Because for full disclosure, we were doing our open, and next thing we know, we get the word, hey, Kristen Scott is out, Katie Bradley's in the starting lineup. We didn't see anything. You were working your sources, Bryson. What can you tell us?
So basically, my sources told me that Kristen Scott went down during warmups. I was then pointed out that she was basically sitting on the bench for the rest for the whole game, and losing her, I think, especially if I'm going to understand that because she was a late scratch, that she was intending on playing. Having a person that is crucial to your goal scoring, as Kristen Scott has been this season, taken out, could certainly take the wind out of this team's sails going into this game. Now, luckily, they managed to overcome that, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough against a number 13 ranked Ole Miss. So I think what this team really needs to get on is that they need to be able to really orchestrate some goal scoring opportunities apart from Kristen Scott. This is the part where like Mallory Olsen, Deanna Martin, Anna Henderson, and Mia Asenjo, they all need to step up, because if
we don't know Scott's status. Tim Sahedek was asked about it after the match, said that at the time, hey, the doctors are taking a look at her and we just don't have any information. Obviously, that was Sunday. By now, they probably have an idea, but we don't know. And they're going to be on the road for a while, so we may not know exactly. So we're going to have to monitor this. If we see Scott in the lineup, great. If we don't, then we're going to be wondering. But in the meantime, to Bryson's point, other players will have to step up. And Anna Henderson did that on Sunday night in the second half, but others will have to step up on that. That's something to monitor, because to me, Kristen Scott certain players just have that gift to put the ball behind the net. There's not many of them. Kristen Scott's one of them. That hopefully she's okay and will be back soon, if not this Sunday, soon.
Mallory Olsen actually led UCF with 3 total shots, 2 shots on goal in 45 minutes of action. It still feels like Mia Asenjo, who you mentioned, Eric, is still kind of feeling her way into the season a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward for her to really break out in this opportunity. I think this North Carolina match coming up on Sunday in Chapel Hill, 1 p.m. Do we have TV for that one, Eric?
ACC Network Extra.
Okay,
so on your streams there. And
is that available on ESPN Plus?
It should be available on your stream. I don't think it's Plus, but it's kind of like your regular ESPN, like regular cable stuff. Like if you go SEC Network Plus, AC, it's kind of that version. So that should be available. Tiffany Roberts-Sahedek will be back, by the way, to coach UCF. She was not with the team for the Ole Miss match because she was the assistant. She was serving as the assistant for the U.S. national team in a couple of friendlies against Nigeria, which Team USA won. Bryson and I spoke to Tim Sahedek about Coach Tiffany being with Team USA and how that impacted the team and the experience, and also Tim, as far as what he's learned from the team and kind of how they've dealt with that.
It's an incredible opportunity for her. I mean, personally, professionally, for her to be back, with the best team in the world and around really high performers. I think it's an incredible opportunity for her, professionally, to learn from the best and be around the best. I mean, we've already grown so much in what we do here, just doing things better from an organizational standpoint, from a tactical standpoint. There's just so much that we can still learn. So it's a great opportunity for us.
Two more. Coach, this was your first time back under at least the head coaching duties, at least in name, since you and your wife were co-head coaches at VCU.
Yeah.
But even if it what was it like to be back in the head coaching position again, even if it was just in name only?
Really, it's no different in the way that we operate. Other than usually Tiff is the one pulling my shirt and making me sit down in my chair, so I didn't have her to really have my back and calm me down. But no, we just kind of business as usual, really.
Obviously, you go to North Carolina, homecoming for you and Tiff, nothing new there. What's the approach going to UNC? And what have you learned about your team here? It's still early. That was an NCAA quality match there.
Yeah, I mean, we expect Ole Miss to be one of the best teams in the country. I mean, I think they're 12th right now. I mean, that's probably a fair assessment of where they're at, if not, in the top 10. So we know we can compete with anybody. I think what we've learned from last year and, what we're still continuing to learn is that we have to be consistent and be able to do it every night. Despite where we are, who we're playing, we have to be able to put in our best performance because, teams like Carolina, they're used to doing that.
So that was Tim Sahaydak after the postgame. Great little stat here. Tim Sahaydak was the basically served as the head coach basically on Sunday night he's the
acting head coach.
Head coach. It is the first time that UCF women's soccer has not had either Tiffany Roberts-Sahaydak or Amanda Cromwell be the head coach down on the bench for a match since 1998. When then Karen Richter, the Hall of Fame goalkeeper who was the head coach and has been the head coach at Auburn since 1999, when she left UCF to go to Auburn, she's still the head coach at Auburn. She was the head coach. They were in the NCAA tournament. Her associate head coach that year, Matt Mott, who's the head coach at Ole Miss, who was here this Sunday night. How about that? Huh?
Funny how things come full circle.
How about that? It's kind of wild.
So we got UNC ACC Network Plus Sunday, 1 p.m. in Chapel Hill. And then after that, Eric, guess what? Next Thursday, 7 p.m., American Athletic Conference play begins.
Memphis, too. At Memphis in what could be...
Right out the gate, man. Woo.
Could be the final time UCF Memphis ever play in women's soccer, at least as conference mates.
I hope not, because man, these two teams have gone at it for so many years, and every time it's intense. It's everything that you want college soccer to be about. So yes, likely last time they'll meet in conference, but hopefully we'll see them again more on down the line. Over to the men who had two games scheduled this week. Friday at 7 p.m. at Florida Gulf Coast, it was ruled a no contest due to weather. Once again, the weather biting. Man, we need this 21st century model so bad so we can move the fall season back up.
You there? We may just need to put it in indoors for soccer in August and September.
Or something, man. I don't know. Let's play some indoor soccer like the Crusaders. Ruled a no contest with UCF up 1-0. Luca Dorado scored a goal in the first half, and then it didn't. And then lo and behold, it didn't count. So forget it. You didn't see it. It never happened. So that brings us to this past Monday when UCF took on UC Riverside out of the Big West, one of two Big West opponents that UCF is playing in these two matches because they head out to Irvine, California, to play UC Irvine at Anteater Stadium, Eric Lopez, on September 9th, Friday. And I want to get Bryson in here on this one because they beat Riverside 3-0. And it looked like there were a couple of kinks that they worked out because they're now 2-1 on the season. Gino Vivi scored a goal. Luca Dorado scored a goal, which is exactly what we want to see. Josiah Ramirez scored as well in late in the second half. But it was this is what you wanted to see is those two guys, Gino and Luca, getting it going. And this was a classic UCF game. They put the pressure on, 18 shots to Riverside's 11, and got the job done on the home pitch.
Yeah. Luca Dorado. I remember he mentioned hearing that he had a preseason injury that he was trying to work off of. It looks like that he's slowly progressing on that front. What I'm really impressed so far is Mauricio Villalobos. He's been serving as team captain for the past 3 seasons now, so he's very much a big leadership pillar on this team. but his on-field performance has been actually doing very well so far this season. Last time against North Florida in the last official, completed match the guys played, he ended up getting that really great heads-up goal against North Florida to give them the win. Tonight, he got 2 assists on both Gino Vivi's and Luca Dorado's goals. So he gets his first 2 assists on the year there. I mean, Villalobos, I'm impressed with how heads up he's been throughout the rest of this year, but to see Vivi and Dorado, they've also be performing well on all cylinders. Dorado finally gets his first official goal of the season to count after the FG, because that goal that they scored in Florida Gulf Coast, that was Luca that made that.
Right. I think that should count towards his individual standing.
You got to play 70 minutes to make it.
I get it. I get it. But, it's kind of like when the NCAA, penalizes a team by like taking away their wins because of an ineligible player or something. It's like, come on, man. I saw what happened. You can't, now I'm not saying it should count toward the team stats, but it should count toward the individual stats.
I mean, I would love that, because that would mean Luca Dorado will be 1 goal closer to getting to the top 10 all time in career goals.
Exactly.
Both Dorado and Vivi, by the way, both of them sit at 18 goals last I checked. Yeah. So they are about, I believe, 5 goals off, both of them, from the top 10 all time.
By the way,
something to watch this season.
Let's not forget, for those who are like, yeah, but it didn't count. Oh yeah, tell that to the bus driver. Tell that to the guy, to the director of operations who's handling the gas bill for that bus trip down to,
he's
down
happy.
to Fort Myers.
Hey, he's getting paid. He's happy.
Well, yeah, the guy who paid for the gas company's happy. The charter bus company's happy.
Well, yeah.
What do they do? Just take a joyride down there? Come on.
Well, the big story to me about this team is
it's not like they were out at Marco Island or something.
It happens. I don't know what to tell you. Mother Nature, move. Maybe soccer you need to move the season back or something. I don't know.
Count the individual goal toward the time, and just rule the game a no contest.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Otherwise, can you imagine?
I know that's not how it works, but what I'm saying is that's how it should work.
Then you're saying that a home run should count if you hit it in the second inning. The game gets rained out in the third.
Yes.
It's not going to happen. Statisticians, that's a statistician nightmare, actually. Statisticians don't like that.
On.
The biggest story here to me, though, is UCF's got a goalkeeper. And
yes, they do.
We've seen him now for 3 matches, and Juandi is really good. And I think they're getting better.
Juan V. Munoz.
It's a great name. Coach Calabrese, they're getting better. We'll see how they do on the West Coast. And you've still got some things to sort out, but you want to hopefully you have those resolved by the time you get to conference play.
Riverside Irvine, by the way, I should say, sorry, Bryson. These 2 teams are competitors for the Big West Conference right now. So these are not cupcakes out here.
Yeah.
This is the kind of team that UCF could very well see in the first or second round of the NCAA tournament if they get that far into the field of 48. Go ahead, Bryson. I'm sorry.
I also wanted to mention one other tiny side story that happened at the UC Riverside game is that the men's soccer team got Clement Goin. He's French. I can't pronounce the last name. He's a midfielder on the field for the first time. He was a late addition to the men's soccer roster, only announced like right before this game happened. And Calabrese managed to get him out on the field for 13 minutes. And talking to him after the game, he said that for someone that wasn't able to be at preseason training with the team, he performed very well for those 13 minutes. So I'm actually quite interested to see what he will be able to do in the midfield once he gets a little more training and experience under him. And you can watch entire interview with Coach Calabrese along with all the other post games from all of the events we've talked about on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel.
Yeah, Clement is a 5'6" freshman from Caen, France. He is so new that he has no bio and no headshot because his headshot is the nighthead right now. So arrived pretty late. Like
only in soccer you can come and go, man. Can come and go.
No, really. I mean, you got to be enrolled for some classes, right? I mean, he's got
September 2nd. They announced the UCF Athletics website announced him as an addition to the roster on September 2nd. So he's not even been here. He's not even been here a week yet.
Right. So Bryson, you said that when did the semester actually start?
The semester actually started about late August.
What was the come on, man, you're a student. You should have known this. It should have been ingrained into your head.
I've been keeping up. I have been keeping up with classes. I have a portfolio to submit at the end of the semester, Jeff.
Fair point. I'll give that to you. But I what I'm getting at is he must have been here for the start of classes, and then and then was ruled eligible to play fairly recently, I'm guessing.
Here's official. All right, I just found it. Officially, classes began on Monday, August 22nd.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, you can't. I don't think you can start that late, right? I mean, if you're a regular student,
it says he transferred in from College Jean Malin of his hometown of home.
Yeah, it's probably one of those you wait till he's cleared and all that. Remember that, Jeff, last year when was it like a couple years ago when Alicia Lewis was announced that she was good to go to play for UCF? Literally, they announced it the day of the opener of the season. Hey, she's good to play now. So it's probably one of those.
But that's also. But there's a difference between being eligible to play and enrolled in classes.
Right. But what I'm saying is they probably were checking, make sure everything's all good. That's probably the
that's what I think is kind of interesting because he's so new that none of his stuff is up there. All right, so men's soccer 2-1 with a no contest mix in there, and heading out to California to play UC Irvine. That game is on ESPN Plus, 9 p.m. Eastern time Friday night. So that'll be taking place across from the football game.
Time zone.
But hey, listen, 7:30 kick for football, 9 o'clock kick for soccer, which means second half, you can get the laptop out.
UCF will hopefully put the game away.
If you're in the stadium, get your phone out. All right, keep an eye on the soccer team playing Riverside. They knock in a few goals, and then we can focus on the football game. Come on. We can multitask here. This is 2022. We're able to do this,
Bryson will do that.
I have my Apple TV that can split screen. I will definitely do that. And hopefully they can get some more votes because right now UCF is receiving 6 of them in the coaches poll at the moment.
All right. That's what we're hoping for. Hopefully they'll be able to get that going soon. Last little bit, Bryson, cross country started their season. We got our preview up with Anne-Marie Blaney as a special guest analyst, which I thought was really great. Be sure you check that out at blackgoldbanneret.com. Hosted the home meet to start out. How did it go?
For a home meet, I would say it started all right. Florida was there. Florida's a dominant cross country power in the state. They took the win. Fair. That's fair. They won by 28 points over UCF. Florida got 37. UCF got 65. Basically, I explained this in the preview, but how cross country
the lower the score, the better you do.
Right. Basically, each position is whichever position you get is the number of points you get. First place gets 1, second place gets 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. UCF actually got the second place finisher in overall in that meet in true freshman Isabella Richardson. I got to talk to her after the meet. It's on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. And with Valerie Lastra not returning to the team this year, I think Isabella Richardson is going to be taking the spot of like the kind of the lower stick runner. Coach Jackson's mentioned how you always want to have one runner that can go for the lowest number of points possible. And Isabella Richardson looks like the runner that can do just that. This was her first 5K on American soil, Jeff, and she ran 10 seconds below her personal best.
Yeah, you see, I've had a couple of people put on a new personal best. I thought I saw one runner actually shaved 1 minute off of her personal best in the 5K.
Yes, that was Paige Kelly and Sophia Lance. Unfortunately, they didn't finish among the top 7, which means that their point values didn't count towards the team. But the individual progress and and Amber Blaney mentioned how you really want to have that pack mentality with cross country, and the faster that the rest of your team gets, then the better off your team is. So the individual improvement from Lance and Kelly can certainly help the team down the road. I'm just very intrigued because Isabella Richardson put on such a solid performance, not racing a 5K officially for the first time on a new continent. She talked about how racing in Florida is a lot different from racing in her native New Zealand. And it's actually very interesting when you think about it, because she talked about how racing on sand actually slows you down a little bit more because New Zealand doesn't really have that. And then the weather's completely different too. It's honestly quite interesting. And yet she still put on a performance that was 10 seconds below her personal best. Once I think she gets a little more acclimated to racing on American soil, I am very intrigued to see what she will be capable of.
All right. So we'll be looking forward to that. When's their next meet?
Their next meet is going to be at the North Alabama Showcase on Friday, September 16th. It's going to preview the course that they will be going to for the NCAA South Regional. John Hunt Park is the place in Huntsville, Alabama, that's going to host the NCAA South Regional. And so now they're going to get a chance to preview that course up very, very soon on Friday, September 16th at North Alabama.
All right. So that should be a lot of fun to keep an eye on. I know you'll be keeping an eye on that as you do with all the other sports. And Bryson, thanks again for your hard work in getting everything on the up and up for soccer, cross country, and volleyball. All right, that will do it for our show. Look at you are all caught up, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank Roy Philpott for joining us from ESPN. You can listen to him, Andre Ware, and Paul Calcaterra on the telecast on ESPN2. On 7:30 on Friday, UCF against Louisville. Be there. You know that I will be there. Eric and Bryson, I know you guys will be following the game, following that telecast for the game. What do you guys have in store for Friday night?
We'll be doing night shift post game. We'll recap it all. Take your comments and questions from social media and on our chat room. Hope to have Kyle Nash from the stadium too. We'll break it down, and like I said, we'll have that on our YouTube channel live on Black and Gold Banneret, and then on our podcast feed as well. So look for that on the podcast feed. And
Drew will be at the stadium as well. So will Derek Warden taking all the photos, and we'll be looking out for all the content coming up. Plenty of previews to take care of as well as we move forward. For the upcoming game, not just that, but all the preview work that we have coming up for this big Louisville game, revenge game. Big time on Friday night. This might be, Eric, the most intense bounce house atmosphere maybe since COVID. Do you think?
I mean, the weather cooperates, sure.
Yeah. That's always the asterisk there, I know. But I'm trying to think, like 2022, I mean, Boise was kind of like the return game from all that.
Maybe no. Look, this is the marquee game of the home schedule. I think this is the game everybody's circled. Should be.
I'm looking forward to a sellout. I'm hoping that the weather treats us the way it treated us last Thursday, where whatever it had to do, it got done early, and we were able to get the game out. We were able to get the game going on time. So, again, stay with us for all the latest on that. Follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com. We are your home for UCF sports on SB Nation. Follow us on Twitter, UCF Banneret _SBN. We are on YouTube, Black and Gold Banneret. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And of course, on Instagram, Black and Gold Banneret as well, where we have all our latest post-game sound. And then also just the amazing photos that Derek and Noah have been putting up. They've been absolutely killing it on that stream. And every time, man, I'm just like in awe of the work that they do. And I hope you guys are too. John Rice Plumley was even giving Noah some love on some of the photos from the South Carolina State game, which was awesome. You can also subscribe to this podcast if you don't already on Apple and Android. If you do, we thank you. Don't forget to leave us a rating. And don't forget to follow us individually. I'm at Jeff_Sharon. Eric is at Eric Lopez Elo. Bryson at It's Bryson Turner. Drew is at Statboy Drew, and Kyle is at the SOTG. Don't forget to follow _DS Warden and the Noah Goldberg, our staff photographers here at Black Gold Banneret, for all their latest work from all the UCF sporting events they're at. For all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. We will see you Friday night, UCF Louisville, 7:30. See you there, folks. Go Knights. Charge on.